Good morning and good evening, race fans. Welcome to today's coverage of a special event, the 2 hours at the Glen by VPR, live here on TRTN. As always, I'm Regan Clark, and you join us here in the quiet end of New York State in the United States of America, nestled between the towns of Dix and Watkins Glen, here at the Watkins Glen International Circuit. Founded as a permanent racing installation in 1956 with 11 turns and 3.4 miles of FIA Grade 2 in a track that's fiercely loyal to its original 1950s construction. The long course layout of the track would crop up in 1971 and has been the same layout used now for some nearly 55 years, albeit save for the introduction of the inner loop chicane introduced in 1992. Watkins Glen is heralded as the American road racing mecca, the convergence point of multiple of its major series, including but not limited to the IMSA Sports Car Championship, NASCAR's Cup, O'Reilly and Craftsman Truck Series, and the Trans Am Series. As of next year, we'll see the return to the calendar of the GT World Challenge America Series, and of its former series saw IndyCar compete here at Watkins Glen under the Grand Prix at the Glen between 1979 and 2017. And among its most notable former events was a 19-year stint in Formula One as the home of the United States Grand Prix between 1961 and 1980 in what is regarded as some of the most dangerous years of Grand Prix competition in Formula One history. Otherwise then, Watkins Glen represents a proper slice of old-school American motor racing history here, and as we've seen to be the same case over across the pond in the UK with some of our older circuits, with this older layout comes plenty of challenges along the way. Speed is the A-game here at Watkins Glen, and we see as of the GT3 manufacturers, 3 of its fastest currently stand on a 1-2-3 formation. More onto that in a moment's time as we follow on board here with the number 10 BMW of Alex Pratilas, taking a look in towards today's session regulations. Starting things off then, as you join us in the last 10 minutes of free practice. Around the corner will be 25 minutes of qualifying to set the stage of a 2-hour race. 2 mandatory pit stops coming up over the course of that event, with only fuel being part of that mandate. Tyres are a totally optional choice for these drivers for today's event. The qualifying system will follow a staggered process with 25 minutes left to go at the session start. We'll see the release of the GT3s up until the 14-minute mark, where in which they'll have roughly 2 minutes to come back into the pits before the release of the GT4s, with 12 minutes left to go. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out in real time. A multi-class event here. Boiled down originally, though, was slated to be about 5 or 6 categories, as this event originally cropped up as NLS2 on VPR. After having undergone some major changes to the regs, we now find ourselves here way out of Europe and into North America, here at the Watkins Glen International Circuit, having a look at those 2 categories, GT3 and GT4, 2 of the most prominent on ACC, multiple familiar faces to us here on TRTN, but many more that we have yet to meet. So it's going to be very exciting to see how today's event transpires here at Watkins Glen International. Still watching on board then with Alex Pratilas, and before we look back in towards those timing charts just in lieu of the start of qualifying in a moment's time, let's have a glance at the balance of performance listings for today's event. Starting things off with the GT3s, Lexus and Ford stand at joint advantage, 17 kilos from the RCF and the Mustang, albeit save for the Mustang's 20% engine restrictor, though, as the timings will indicate, that's done very little to stem the tide on the 7th generation Ford Mustang. BMW lose 4 kilos with Porsche losing 1, Ferrari will gain 2, and McLaren will gain 8. Lamborghini gain 10, and Mercedes stand in with a whopping 20 kilos. Taking a look over towards the GT4s as we now follow on board with the Breaking Point Racing number 28 Ferrari of Fabian Johore, a familiar face to us for those keen viewers of the Competizione Performance League GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series will remember this name, the Venezuelan talent in the number 28. Looking into the GT4s, Aston Martin will be at primary advantage, 13 kilos from the vantage today, with KTM following closely behind in 8 kilos away. Audi lose 3 kilos. Chevrolet, the dominant figurehead of GT4 in the modern day on Assetto Corsa Competizione, stand neutral. Nothing gained, neither lost on the 6th generation Camaro GT4R. Mercedes gain 4 kilos. McLaren gain 6. Porsche stand at direct disadvantage. The only double figure weight gain for today's grid, 18 kilos on the 718 Cayman Club Sport. So having a look at those timing charts for today's event, we find this one here, a new driver to us, like many that we'll see over the course of this event, getting introductions out of the way with these brand new drivers we see here with Destin Hergert, the fastest in the session by 278 thousandths of a second to a driver some of you may remember from our coverage on, I want to say it was over on the TRC GT Manufacturers Cup, and this is Yamin van der Zwaag in the number 9. Having dropped Nissan, now with Lexus for today's event, one of the fastest cars in GT3, joint fastest, some could say, with that of the 7th generation Mustang. When tested at the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza, which has served as the backbone for our data collection on these GT3s on ACC, we find both of these cars to be joint fastest, 175 mile an hour top end at one of the fastest circuits in circulation. Now, they'll be scraping closer to that here at Watkins Glen, but nothing anywhere near close. Alex Patilas, we were following on with at the start of the broadcast, is third in the GT3s. Behind him is Alex Folbert in fourth place. Chase Hamilton, a familiar driver to us from our coverage over on Continental Racing League, one of the drivers of the Freeman Sim Racing lineup, currently rounds the top 5 out, only 100th ahead of Fabian Johorek in 6th. Carter van der Twag, another new driver to our radars here, is 7th ahead of Traitor Phantom, another new driver. And following thereafter on a series of firsts, we find this one here, the number 45 of Henry Freeman. Liam Larson rounds out the top 10 with Traitor Mugetsu in 11th. Peyton Lopez in 12th with Matthew Kelsey, I should say, there in 13th. Travis Rusnak rounds out the timing charts for the GT3s. Heading up the field then for GT4, and in 15th place overall here in free practice, a driver very familiar to us in our time in GT4. The Australian talent in the number 6 Milk Crate Racing Chevy is Clinton Bourne as he heads up through the S's here, tucked in behind another Chevrolet on the run up through turn 4. He heads up this GT4 field on the run up towards qualifying here, some 4 tenths, just under actually 4 tenths in the clear over the 115 of Will Richards of McLaren. It's still a dominant presence by Chevrolet in both the wider top 5 and top 10, with Cal Ford on our radars at the moment, third in the GT4s ahead of Dustin Hicks in 4th place. Rounding out the top 5, now, last appearance did see this one here compete in the TRC Sprint Cup EU Series with Nissan. Now drops GT3 for GT4. Polish talent Pavel Jaschuk rounds the top 5 out in the number 96 BMW. He's up and ahead of Logan Herzog in Aston Martin's number 74 Vantage. Then we have Evan Rogers in 21st overall, ahead of Danny Medina and Declan Russell. Tur Cricken in 24th with Jeremiah Lowy in the 25th place slot there in the 444 Chevrolet, up ahead of 2 KTMs, that being Karina Stinson, another familiar face to us here on TRTN, and Bryce Ogilvie, a new driver on our radars in the 97 Crossbow. Further behind, we still have uncategorized times, including that of Ogilvie, but also here Radoslav Kowalczyk, who's, I believe this is the first time seeing him since, I want to say it was the NLRL Solo Multi-Class Endurance Championship, so quite a long time since that day. We also see here with the number 46, I believe this is Alex Miller. We see here Mike Morales in the 317 AMG, currently merged in with the number 9 of Yamin van der Zwag, rounding out the timing charts at the moment with 30, looking here, I was about to say 33 cars, and yes, that is the case, because we just saw cross the line a moment ago to make it a Ford 1-2, Justin Benton. Of course, you've seen this one quite familiarly over on the TRC, both the Sprint Cup EU Series, where he went toe-to-toe with that. Oh, we're learning quite a fair deal about these new drivers. So it's Destin Herger there. We were having a bit of a hiccup trying to figure out the name, and also in the case of Logan Herzog, it's not Herzog, as in the, I think it's the Dutch pronunciation we were trying to lead on there. So back onto this one here, Justin Benton. And now, of course, we did see him in his fight in the TRC Sprint Cup EU Series, where he went toe-to-toe, ultimately fell behind, though, to take the Pro Division Championship away from Sean Johnstone. But we did see this one play a dominant performance over on the TRC GT Manufacturers Cup, where in which he, alongside several Mercedes cars, would clear house here at Watkins Glen way back when, during our coverage of that season, of which you can find on the TRTN YouTube channel in our archives. Benton now makes a Ford 1-2 alongside that of Destin Herger. Ford are looking to be among the strongest on the field, make no mistake of it. Even in spite of that 20% restrictor, it does very little to taper what has been an indomitable stride in the 7th generation Mustang since its introduction to Assetto Corsa Competizione. Oh, we are learning a lot here. And just some context for those viewers in perhaps watching on the YouTube replay of this. We're having a lot of people come into the Twitch chat now, giving us some personal insight onto how to pronounce their name. So it's not Yamin, it's Jamin van der Zwag. Regardless of pronunciations, with 30 seconds left to go, that which we can say properly, and we find ourselves now heading up in towards qualifying in a moment's time. You can see it is quite a stacked grid here, north of 30 cars on the run up towards quali today. We do find ourselves with drivers forced to share a grid slot. That could make for a rather packed pit lane over the course of this 2-hour event. Of course, 2 mandatory pit stops as part of the session mandate, only for fuel, mind you. So roughly would be about a 20-second stop. Now, there has been some discourse and debate over exactly how long that's going to stay on the stop-off. So at the end of free practice, we are short to get on towards the coverage of qualifying in a moment's time. Now, of the drivers still out on track at the moment is the 28 and the 45. So we see that of Fabian Yahure and Henry Freeman. Both Ferraris then just scraping their way into the top 10. One of 3 Ferraris, with the other being Chase Hamilton in the 48, currently resided to the pit lane for Yahure. This is a curious one to see because we've very limited scope on his previous performances in GT3. We've seen him primarily through the lens of GT4 via our coverage of the Competizione Performance League GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series, of which you can catch live here on TRTN for the remainder of its season. There's been a bit of a hiccup trying to get that back up and running, as some of you may have seen, but you can also catch the previous 3 seasons in their entirety available via the TRTN YouTube channel. Yahure, followed by Freeman, make their way up towards turns 10 and 11. Now, the track tour of Watkins Glen will be coming up in a moment's time, and as mentioned before, we do have here between the 25 and 14-minute marks the GT3 end of qualifying. When the 12-minute marker strikes, we will see the GT4s come out to play. Down towards the line then for the start of qualifying here at Watkins Glen. 25 minutes on the clock, so the GT3s are the first to be able to come out here. You can see it was a bit of a hesitant start, but getting first out among the fray here, getting a look way down the order in this extensive grid. This is going to be something we'll wrestle with over the course of today's event, but it's the number 9 leading that charge with Lexus, if we can go and find them. This is a remarkably large grid for today's event here with Jamin van der Zwaag. We see immediately getting up past him there is Justin Benton, so that now gives us the arduous task of having to go all the way back up through the grid to find him. There we go, on board with that of Justin Benton. Sadly, no qualifying predictions for today's event, so we entered this one, albeit a little bit blind, but as we saw towards the trailing end of free practice, definitely worth keeping an eye onto Destin Herger and Justin Benton, who led that charge in GT3, a 1-2 for the Ford Motor Company. Not too far away then from the facility that birthed the 7th generation Mustang over in Flat Rock, Michigan. Albeit it's all the way across Lake Erie and then halfway up through the state of New York itself, but it's as close as they'll get in the absence of tracks like Indianapolis. We're here at the 2 hours of the Watkins Glen circuit, so of course nothing else to be followed up in terms of a championship, a one-off event then. Rare is it we get to cover these special events, and let alone any in North America. I believe our last special event, I want to say, was over in, I want to say it was South Africa in our time with AXRL. So down towards the line then with Justin Benton, who will lead the charge into the track tour. The first flying laps coming up around the corner here in qualifying at the start of the GT3 leg. Down through to the 90 here at turn 1, 90-degree right-hander. A little bit of a drop down through there. You can see much more liberal use of the track limits. Of course, have been forged around nearly some 70 years of stock car racing, with its first NASCAR race cropping up in, I believe it was 1957. No, actually, yes, it was 1957, 1956, or the first sports car race here in Watkins Glen, up through the S's and in towards this new addition. Introduced in 1992, the inner loop chicane acts as a breaker here. What is a very sharp right-hander to follow such a long straightaway section as we make our way downhill through the outer loop here at turn 5. Down in towards the boot section of the track that forms the long course layout, introduced in 1971, as we make our way through Chute Corner at turn 6. Downhill left-hander, a lot of long sweeping corners. You can really start to get the understanding from this that over its many years in stock car racing and sports car racing, all the way as far back as the 50s, that this track has been forged around cars that are a little bit on the loftier end. It makes for wonderful viewing though here when it comes to the more nimble GT3s. Up and around the toe section at turn 7. Along the boot straight we go in towards heel at turn 8. You can really start to get an understanding as to why cars like the Ford and the Lexus and the BMW have flourished in this environment here, with only 11 corners to speak of as we barrel round turn 9. A little trouble up front there for Miller as we head up in towards turn 10 and 11. Now Miller will be hoping to maybe shove out of the way here to not get in the way of Justin Benton. It looks like that might be a luxury for another flying lap coming out through turn 11. That is very, very close as Miller nearly ducks into the pit lane. Down to the line goes Justin Benton, though I imagine a little bit shaken up there by very nearly colliding with Alex Miller. Across the line for our first time, 1:44.372. Behind is Jamin, I should say, Van der Zwaag, still wrestling with the name pronunciation there. 1.173 seconds from Benton's leading time. 1:44.372, still the fastest as it stands right now. Across the line a moment ago, Traitor Phantom. Then up and ahead of them goes Destin Herget. So Ford back on 1-2, albeit flipped on their head here. Chase Hamilton across the line. We see from behind them as well the approach of the Mercedes cars, but I believe in the case there of that 5:03 of Travis Rusnak, no time set at this time. The 666 nearest, so here comes Traitor Mugetsu. Goes from 16th to 6th there, tucked in behind Traitor Phantom. Nearest to the line, number 317. Looking here with Mike Morales. Down towards the line we go then. As he stands right now, 5th place. The number 45 from behind him approaches the line. We'll see what the time is coming through for the 45 for Henry Freeman. Goes up into the top 5. From behind them approaches the number, I believe, 44 and number 3 there down towards the line. So in the trailing half of it was Peyton Lopez. And across the line we go then with the number 3 now to 7th. Up in front of him, the number 44 failed to set a time there. That was for Matthew Kelsey. Number 991 is nearest here, Radoslav Kowalczyk. And it's been a long time since we've seen Kowalczyk on our screens. And I believe the last time we did see him was driving in with the Porsche 911 992. Down across the line he goes. From behind him as well, the number 57 approaches the line, immediately down a position as Alex Faubert sets the 3rd fastest time for Mercedes. Now that is a curiosity when one considers Mercedes weren't originally in the runnings to be among the fastest on the grid. We see, and there we, I was about to say, and there we do have it, as Jamin Van der Zwaag goes into 2nd fastest. Alex Pratilas makes 3rd, so that drops Destin Herget down to 4th place, and Alex Faubert to 5th. Chase Hamilton, Henry Freeman, and Fabian Yahure make a Ferrari 6th through 8th at this time. Behind him, Morales and Phantom. And so with a new swarm of times coming down towards the line here, we do note a manufacturer we failed to pick up on in BOP listings, and that is for Honda, courtesy of Jaden Johnson-Ward, who not too long ago this week saw their inaugural victory in the Golds division over on the OLR XVSR Midweek Championship when he competed from the Suzuka International Racing course with Lamborghini. Now we see Jaden Johnson-Ward dropping the V10 for a V6. 5.2 litres, and the Lamborghini drops down to 3.5 here with Honda. Still a very, very competitive time from the Barbadian. He's in 6th place, up and ahead of the Ferraris. That's now down to 7th, courtesy of Henry Freeman, who goes up into that 6th place spot. Now it's worth noting the top 6 within a second of one another front to back. Nearest to the line, I believe, is the number 44, followed by the number 3. So that would be that of Kelsey and Lopez. Kelsey goes into 18th place. Lopez stays in 13th. 991 nearest. Here comes Kowalczyk. It's worth noting then for these drivers, they are not too long from their cutoff point, about 4 minutes from the mark at this time. Before they are forced into an in-lap, they will have to exfil from the track before the 12-minute mark here. Otherwise, I'm told there is upwards of a 120-second penalty coming to the drivers if they are out past that curfew. Kowalczyk stays in 14th. Number 12 is nearest to the line. That'll be for Justin Benton. 1:44.135, still the fastest time of the session. Number 46 from behind. That was for the BMW of Miller. Goes to 11th. Then we see Jamin Van der Zwaag in 2nd, reluctantly just over half a second away. Number 4 across the line, Carter Van der Zwaag, now to 13th with Lamborghini. Up and ahead of Phantom and Lopez. Number 48 nearest, I believe that will be for Chase Hamilton. Goes from 8th to 7th there. Jaden Johnson-Ward takes that right back and leaps over both Hamilton and Freeman of the Freeman Sim Racing lineup up to 5th, just up and ahead there of Alex Faubert. Number 28 is nearest. So here comes Fabian Yahure, Breaking Point Racing. A team we have become very familiar with their exploits over in GT4. The Venezuelan talent and his time spent on the GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series with one prominent part of the pro lineup. Yahure to the line from 9th, stays right where he is. From behind him there was, I believe, the number... It was not the number 48, sorry, the number 45 of Henry Freeman. Stays in 7th. Faubert up in front. Johnson-Ward now into the top 5 for Honda. It's easy to underestimate the Honda NSX. A car often overlooked in the history books as well. The second generation Honda NSX came around in the late 2010s. Failed to make market in Europe. And moreover, was still falling short in Japan to rivals at Nissan with the still also present GTR. Albeit just not present to today's grid. This represents one of two major marks then for Japanese manufacturers on this grid. The other, currently up in second, is Lexus, courtesy of the RCF of Jamin van der Zwaag. 144, 135, still the time to beat. He's 550 thousandths out. He's down across the line and stays right where he is. 777 following Flores to the line. Number 4 behind them is van der Zwaag. I mean Carter van der Zwaag. Both of them stay right where they are. From across the line a moment ago, the number 30 was that of Destin Herget. 4th place at the moment. It is a far cry of the performance we saw of Herget in free practice. Right now, the Ford leading the session is the number 12 of Justin Benton. What was originally slated to be the chances of a Ford 1-2 in today's event. Herget finds himself reluctantly outside of the top 3. We're a minute and a half before the infill period for these GT3s, so time is really starting to run up short for some of these drivers to make a mark on this grid. Of course, they've had some multiple hours. Now, of course, where our listing said it was only 60 minutes of free practice, we are told is plenty more than that for these drivers, so they've had quite a fair deal of time to cut their teeth, but the pressures of qualifying is often what catches even the most astute drivers out. Knowing that you're backed into somewhat of a corner, you've only got X amount of minutes to actually play for in terms of qualifying. Now, we always have to knock off roughly 2 to 3 minutes on a track like Watkins Glen just for the time it takes to get out of the track and complete a full outlap before they begin what is effectively a almost hyperpole-esque sprint around the track. Very few up in that top 5 have slowed down long enough to take a moment of reprieve in the pit lane. Time is money, and they are soon looming on bankruptcy. 38 seconds before the beginning of that infill period. So as it stands here for Herget, this will stand as among his last functional flyers for today's event. To the line a moment ago when the number 9, van der Zwaag, still holds 550 thousandths from Benton. It is big trouble here for the number 9. He's back in. Now, there's fickle chances he'll be coming back out onto the track, so the GT4s are soon to be let loose here at Watkins Glen. Now, as it stands to be the case, unless anything comes along, as now we see Herget up to second, so a solid return to form there in the number 30. That's much more indicative of the performance we were coming to expect, trailing out of free practice today for Destin Herget, albeit tucked in behind Justin Benton as a flip of the heads there for the Fords at the front of the field. So, as we now await the start of the GT4 end of qualifying, the GT3s have been ordered into the pit lane. So we see here for Jaden Johnson-Ward, he's off the exit of turn 9 up towards turns 10 and 11. Here at Watkins Glen, a very solid hustle in a car we weren't expecting to see today, the Honda NSX Evo. Number 26, I believe will be coming into the pit lane on this one. I'm not entirely sure, as we do see there, actually elect to stay out. I believe he thinks he's got enough time here to go for one more infill lap. Number 12 peels down to the line here. 144, 135, still the time to beat. It doesn't look like he'll be landing anywhere north of that, but not that it matters for Justin Benton, fastest in today's session. 44 nearest to the line, that was Matthew Kelsey. 20th at the end of this session. As now the GT3s will start to make their way into the paddock. We see in the background there the 48, Chase Hamilton, on his way in. On the 4th row of the grid then, alongside Henry Freeman. Ferrari have secured that one away with Yahure just in behind. Morales rounding up the top 10. Up in front of them is Faubert, Johnson, Ward, Pratilas, van der Zwaag, Herget and Benton. So the number 4, I believe, will be catching on with next. Carter van der Zwaag makes his way down towards the line. Bear in mind, he's got 30 seconds to get into that pit lane. He does not want to face off against any penalties, but he really wanted to take the chances there, as he'll be peeling in, more than likely teleporting to the pit lane as he makes his way up into that top 10. Relegates Yahure to the back of the 5th row. Very solid hustle nonetheless, though, from the number 4 Lamborghini. Looking here towards the end of the pit lane, you can start to see the drivers queuing up for release as they are only a few seconds away from it here. I'm about to see the drivers leap out from the pit lane. I believe looking to be first among the fray there is the Aston Martin. I want to say that is, yes, that's Logan Herzog. We see there, it's a moment of hesitation on the pit lane, on pit road. Now, I was told as part of the session regs. 12 minutes left to go. That's when these cars get to come out and play. But as it would appear, they are caught in somewhat of an awkward stalemate. You can see multiple cars queuing for pit exit. They've still not been given the all clear. We see actually looking to be first out among the fray is not going to be Logan Herzog. It's in fact going to be the 444 Jeremiah Lowy with Chevrolet. But this is a rather curious development we see here. The number 21 is queuing along with them. Danny Medina, last time we saw him was on the TRC GT Manufacturers Cup. So we are told now, ahead of what we were described previously from the listings on the official VPR server, it's in fact 11 minutes when these cars now get to come out and play. So that's been pushed forward by a minute ahead of schedule. Looking here with Herzog and Lowy. Lowy then first out of the fray, but he could be raced out to the line there, because there goes Herzog. Now faster on the pit exit and will lead the charge for the GT4s. Now, it's worth noting for Aston Martin, they do hold advantage on the grid when it comes to balance of performance, but they're going toe-to-toe with what has been one of the greatest dynasties of GT4 racing here on Assetto Corsa Competizione. The reign of the Chevrolet Camaro GT4R, a bizarre creation from Pratt & Miller Engineering. They took the skin and the body of a Camaro ZL1 and stuck beneath it the, I think it's the LT4 engine, or the, I think it's either the LT4 or the LT1. It's the engine from the Camaro SS, because of course under SRO GT4 regs, superchargers are strictly forbidden, so they had to get very creative here. Does not share the same engine as, necessarily speaking, one for one, the same engine as the Camaro ZL1, and in fact features a heavily modified SS engine. But it has still come to be, at least on Assetto Corsa Competizione, one of, if not the most dominant GT4s of its time. Few, if any, have stood the test of time to go toe-to-toe with Chevrolet today, so here's hoping, the case of Herzog, that he can set in a solid opening lap here in the GT4 end of qualifying. They've had a little less time to play for. Original listings had it 12 minutes of available qualifying time, but now on-the-fly resource changes now has it at 11 minutes of available time for qualifying today. It is quite the curiosity. Going to catch on board then with Logan Herzog as the first out among the fray for the GT4s. And again, the arduous task of locating these cars, because Assetto Corsa Competizione doesn't seem to know how to organise by position. It only seems to organise by, I think it's joining order, then by manufacturer. Two of the weirdest filters you could have for a grid of this size. Down to the line we go then, here with Herzog. Now, what's going to be abundantly clear in the comparison to GT3 is not only the cornering and straight line speed capacity, but when it comes up into the race itself, the amount of available room for these GT4s to play with. Now, while the size difference isn't major, they are notably thinner around the edges than their GT3 counterparts, less squat in form, so it does mean technically a little bit more space is available to them. So in this very wide opening sector, where the GT3s have to play a lot more caution, the GT4s can afford to get their elbows out. That could make for some very exciting racing out back when the lights go green and we go racing here at the 2 hours of the Glen. Down through the inner loop chicane, you can see just how much wider the track feels from the perspective of the titular GT4s. Now, they are a logical evolution of the basic touring car premise, albeit just scaled up for much more powerful machines. Gone are the times of touring car racing in the GT era, so to speak. You cross out past a sort of invisible barrier where you stop driving hatchbacks and you start driving sports cars, and you see there a little bit of trouble for Logan Herzog. Good morning and good afternoon to those of you joining us in the chat. Of course, it is a bit of a weird split time for us at the moment. It's 5:19 a.m. where we're recording here in the UK. Otherwise, it's into the late hours of the night in America, of which this race is currently set in, where the primary audience is tuning in from. You can see how much of that time is eroded away, and for Herzog, that was a costly mistake down at Chute, one that is going to cost him this lap, if it comes in to be valid at all. I think right now, sadly, the telemetry is not much aid to us here. It's actually been showing an extended stay in the pit lane. It's a very common issue on Assetto Corsa Competizione, but it doesn't track the lap times one for one unless you stay on with the driver for multiple laps. You can see massive wad of understeer there for the 74. So Herzog down to the line. It's going to be at a rough start here for Logan. Across the line he goes, and as it would be expected there, no time set. So Danny Medina is making his way to the line from behind that of Jeremiah Lowy. And we see now fastest in the session here is Dustin Hicks, then Will Richards, Then we see approaching the line from behind there, that's Cal Ford, now fastest for the GT4s. And from behind them approaches that of, I want to say that is Evan Rogers in the bright yellow car. Yes, it was Rogers to 4th, then drops down a position to 5th in division with Clinton Bourne introduced to the fray. It's a Milk Crate Racing 1-2. Now these two Aussie talents, prominent sights on the GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series grid. Both Ford and Bourne will compete here from the GT4 category. Both of them fielding the Chevrolet Camaro. Number 17 is nearest, so here comes that of Baxter to the line here. One of a number of BMWs on the grid, the other being Pavel Yaschuk. No time set there for the number 17. Nearest will be, by looks of it here, just having a quick glance in the number 69. So this is the Porsche of Bailey down towards the line here. Crossed the line then a moment ago. As it stands there for Bailey, tucked in behind Tour Krikken, the Belgian talent in the 212. So joining us in chat, a few drivers we're familiar with there, as I believe that's looking in the chat at the moment. Just to a few of them tuning in during this time. I think we can also see that of Luca Tamburini, Declan Anderson, and Fletcher Sealander joining us from the chat at the moment. The latter of which was set to appear in today's race, but sadly had to miss this one out today. No GT4 Merc for him, in his own words. As we now see, heading up the GT4 field, all American machinery and an all Aussie team. Cal Ford and Clinton Bourne for Chevrolet and Milk Crate Racing. You can really see that the margins are not too that far apart when it comes to the two leading Aussies at the moment. The Milk Crate Racing 484 from the number 6 stand 67,000 front to back there on the head of the field. And now they find themselves in the presence of a new division leader as Cal Ford goes to take that one right back off of Will Richards. Now, this is their main heel in the GT4 division so far. We've just under 5 minutes left to go. Richards peels in. The 115 for McLaren is spearheading that charge to go toe-to-toe with the single most dominant manufacturer on Assetto Corsa Competizione GT4. It is quite a tall order, but when it comes to straight line speed on a track like this, few other can do what Chevrolet and McLaren do best. Declan Anderson in chat asks, is the Chevrolet just the Ford of GT4? I would say it's it has more of a grip on GT4s when, I'm not sure how long ago you've been playing the game for, but when the BMW M4 got released onto the market, it completely reworked the meta, and you saw through multiple series drivers just immediately dropped whatever front engine cars they had at the time to go and race with the BMW. I think that's really the kind of grip the Chevrolet has. It stands as just such a solid package over the rest of the field in GT4, to where in our GT4 series that we've covered over the years across both HCCL and Competizione Performance League, there are few, if any, solid comparators that on a season-wide basis can go toe-to-toe with the Camaro. I think right now in this special event, there is a very sizable hope here for McLaren, courtesy of Will Richards in the 115, as currently he stands, looking at it here, 47 thousandths away from division pole. Of course, looking up at the front row, where it's Chevrolet leading the charge for GT4, it's Ford leading the charge for GT3. This was an international effort here between the United States of America and Canada to create the 7th generation Ford Mustang GT3 Multimatic at their Markham, Ontario facility. Helped shape up this car, originally constructed in Flat Rock, Michigan, just on the outskirts of the Detroit metropolitan area, all the way across Lake Erie from where we stand here in New York State, albeit about halfway up through New York State where we are at the moment here at Watkins Glen International. Just under 3 minutes left to go. Bourne still leads the charge. Actually, sorry, I should say that Cal Ford led the charge, but it's now Bourne fastest. It's easy to get these two mixed up in a vacuum here, running the same colour scheme and running for the same team here. And Clinton Bourne, and we've followed his career in GT4 for quite some time here, especially over his exploits in the GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series. This has been quite the notable driver. When it comes to pace, when it comes to qualifying, he is one of a very, very short list of drivers capable of going toe-to-toe with some of the fastest in GT4 over at the Maloir Racing team in our time spent covering the GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series, where world records have been shaped on tracks like these. Bourne is one of a very short list of drivers capable of matching that kind of pace. And right now in his element, the number 6 fastest over his teammate by about 4 tenths, just under of a second. 74 is nearest to the line, so let's go to catch on board here with Logan Herzog, the one who started off the session. Now with the time on the chart, he does find himself all the way down in Division 8. That's 28th overall, as it stands to be the case right now. This could grow to be quite a big concern from here. On the back end of the 14 rows behind Rogers in the number 25. Up and ahead, though, of Declan Russell in the only Audi on this grid, currently in from the pit lane at this time. I believe we have seen a very, very late join to the session, and that is going to play to quite a heavy disadvantage here for one Grzegorz Tachkowski, the number 284 McLaren. He joins the session late. He's missed out on his section of qualifying. So for Tachkowski, they will start plumb last of this one here, 35th. If you ignore the 177, that's us in the Aston Martin. You see here with Pavel Jaschuk. Now, this is a very curious development coming from the Polish talent in the 96. Last appearance we saw him was on the TRC Sprint Cup EU Series and his time spent with Nissan. Now we see here, Jaschuk's in the top 5. Danny Medina rejoins the session to push him back down to 5th, as it was a disconnect that brought Jaschuk up to 4th, but it still stands to be a poignant area of discussion here. The Jaschuk definitely has the cards to manage a top 5. Definitely start for today's event, but even the possibility of a finish there. We see his fellow BMW now down across the line, the number 17. So down through turn 1, Dan Baxter now up into that 3rd row alongside Pavel Jaschuk in the closing seconds of quali. We are noting there what looks to be a few connection troubles from the pit lane. Now, we're not sure exactly how wide that area covers. We will be keeping an ear to the ground on developments there. Logan Herzog, as it stands right now, makes his way down through turn 9. Still on that 8th place spot in division. It is worth noting it was 3 disconnects up front that seemed to have created a bit of havoc up the order at this time. Now we start to see, I think it was a few members of both GT4 and GT3 that were having some connection issues there. Down towards the line goes Logan Herzog. And that is all. That is quite a notable number now. We're actually seeing of disconnects there in GT3. Herzog across the line stays where he is then. 8th at the end of the GT4 leg of qualifying. Actually, as it stands there, 9th with Dan Baxter's most recent time, pushing him up ahead of Logan. Across the line a moment ago there to round out the session for the GT4s is Clinton Bourne on pole position for the GT4s at this time. His teammate Cal Ford of Milk Crate Racing's number 484 car is already in the pit lane. It leaves this one here to be the challenger for GT4 pole as he makes his way through turns 9, 10 and 11 is Will Richards. But before that, down to the line comes the number 212, Tur Kricken. Does he find a booster position there? Sadly, not this time around. He's stuck in behind the Malwa Racing number 800 of Karina Stinson of KTM. Number 17, Dan Baxter into the pit lane. Down to the line from up in front of him there goes that of Karina Stinson. Do they go up and ahead of Lowy? Not this time around. Richards to the line and stays in Division 3rd at the end of qualifying. So a solid endeavour across both categories, and it's American-led machinery on both front rows. In GT3, Justin Benton and Destin Herget, and then way down the line in GT4, the Chevrolets of Clinton Bourne and Cal Ford. A tremendous session indeed then in lieu of today's event. Taking a look back in towards those regulations before we have a look at this very large grid to cover for today's event. We come up in towards 120 minutes, 2 hours in total of racing here at Watkins Glen. 2 mandatory pit stops in all for fuel on each consideration. So tyres totally optional. That will add anywhere between 15 to 5 additional seconds. It depends on how much fuel the drivers are taking. I believe it might be, as per regulation, upwards of a 20-second actual stop, not including the infill and exfill from the pit lane. And as we saw there at the end of that staggered qualifying session, a very unique first then in this end, where we've seen actually an infill period for the leading category. We have seen staggered qualifyings before. Of course, over on the GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series features a notable 30-minute qualifying session, 10 minutes apiece there for the pros, semi-pros and AMs. Over the course of that event, we'll get on in towards the grid. Sadly, no news to discuss at this time, but taking a look at that field, things are looking very, very strong up front there. Justin Benton on an outright pole position for the VPR 2 hours at the Glen in GT3. So as we wait for the grid to form up, conditions right now still look to be dry and favourable for the drivers. No imminent threat of rain. As we now see the grid form up, it is Ford all along that front row. Justin Benton heads up the field for the start of the 2 hours at the Glen here on VPR. And alongside him then is Destin Herger in second. Jamin van der Zwaag in third with Alex Pratilis in fourth. Jaden Johnson-Ward rounds out the top five with Alex Faubert in sixth place. Henry Freeman in seventh with Chase Hamilton in eighth. Fabian Yahure in ninth. And Mike Morales rounds out the top 10. Alex Miller in 11th, Liam Larson in 12th, Traitor Phantom in 13th, and Traitor Mugetsu in 14th. Peyton Lopez in 15th, Radoslav Kowalczyk in 16th. We see there Anthony Flores in the 777 in 17th place, up and ahead of Travis Rusnak in 18th. Matthew Calty rounds out the timings for the GT3s and marks 19th place. Heading up the GT4 field from right behind then, we see the double header from Milk Crate Racing in 20th and 21st is Clinton Bourne and Cal Ford. Behind them, Will Richards and Danny Medina on that second row for GT4. Behind them to round out the division top five is Pavel Yashchuk, then Dan Baxter in 25th overall place. Then we see down through to 30th with Hicks, Rogers, Herzog, I should say. Need to leave the T out there. Russell and Bailey. Jeremiah Lowy in 31st with Karina Stinson in 32nd to a Cricken down to 33rd. I believe that might have been actually a disconnect there for the 2-1-2, if memory serves rightly. As we see behind is Bryce Ogilvie. And then from the back of this 35-car field is Grzegorz Tachkowski in the 284. 30-second warning almost immediately served there, so we are not wasting any time to get on into action for today's event. 35 cars in attendance then for today's event. (17 on one side, 18 on the other. So conditions bright and favourable. 12:01 midday here in game. Otherwise, in the early hours of the morning from the UK, late hours of the night over in the United States, and already drama from the pit lane there. Anthony Flores relegated to a pit lane start. The 777 will start from the paddock for today's event. It's going to be a very, very tough call in GT3 for Grzegorz Tachkowski to start all the way from the back of the field, technically in the 36th place slot. We'll shift up, though, to an immediate 34th place, as it would stand there, with that pit lane start for the 777, making our way down through to the S's as we go here. Talking on the overtaking opportunities available to us here at the Watkins Glen International Circuit. Your immediate considerations run up through that opening sector, which has stood the test of time since 1956 when the track first opened as a permanent racing installation. We do note there from the pit lane a reconnect, as there has been connection troubles for Carter van der Zwaag. They'll start from the paddock alongside that of Anthony Flores. So that opening sector, turn 1 at the 90, gives rise to the run-up through the S's, an area where we're told by race control is going to be of high priority for concern here. The drivers have already been briefed far ahead of time to keep their wits about them and don't try anything heroic on the run-up to turn 3 and 4 out through the exiting part of the S's. It's a good exit from turn 4. That will set them up for the run here at the inner loop chicane. We have seen many, many braver than mine to go in through this section side by side. We saw it most prominently in GT4 and the TLC GT Manufacturers Cup a few months ago. And that brings us in towards turn 5 here, into another overtaking opportunity following out from the outer loop. It's a good exit from here. We'll set you up for the dive down into the chute corner at turn 6. Following thereafter is toe and heel. Both of these areas can facilitate side-by-side action, but in terms of overtaking opportunities, the more poignant of the two has been heel, as this follow-up area following toe. You can get the overtake in on turn 7, but there are few assurances that you'll keep it by the time you get to turn 8 as you enter the boot straight. Otherwise, then, a good exit from turn 11 will set you up on the run down the opening straight towards the 90 for more moves down at turn 1. So as we make our way up in towards Sector 3, to summarise these areas of interest for overtaking opportunities, a good exit from turn 4 into the inner loop will be the first of our major overtaking opportunities. Of course, in the first few laps, we could definitely see quite a fair few carried out at the 90 itself, but as the race progresses, that will become more and more lenient on a good exit of turn, more reliant, I should say, on an exit from turn 11, setting you up for that run in towards the 90 at turn 1. Other opportunities then, turn 6, turn 8, and at a squeeze off the exit of turn 11. But of course, it's worth taking into consideration, we spoke about usable space when it came to the comparison between GT3 and GT4. And I may have been exaggerating a little bit when it came to talking about how wide the GT3s were. Yes, they are a tremendous sort when it comes to their heft and size, but it is worth considering they are on a stock car track for all intents and purposes here. 1956 saw Watkins Glen's first race in NASCAR in the Cup Series as it's known today. And those were, I would say, a bit more of a heftier sort in the 50s than these modern GT3s. Making our way then down towards the line. So you do see then the grid start to form up. Two categories in contention for today's event. Two winners to be crowned here at the VPR 2 hours at the Glen, live on TRTN. What you could be bearing witness to is one of either the greatest opening laps we've ever seen to a special event, or one of the worst, as this track could be rather polarizing. Heading down towards the line, 2 hours on the clock. 35 cars, or 36 I should say, in attendance now to today's event, 18 on either side of which had they all lined up today. We're green and racing here in Watkins Glen. The 2 hours of Glen is officially underway. On the run down towards turn 1, you can see immediately moving to cover off Herget was that of Justin Benton. A great start, and you can see Van der Zwaag already setting their run up for the inside, side by side with Pratilas to hold third place in through the 90. Solid start then by the GT3s. You can see really bunching up towards the back of the top 10 here. We see with Alex Miller side by side with Mike Morales. There is trouble out back. It's from the GT4s and the 115. Will Richards is one caught up among that fray. We see up through the S's here with the GT3s. It could get ugly at this section. Fortunately for them, it does not. You can see swerving his way down the pack straight. A very cocky start from Justin Benton, completely oblivious to what disaster has unfolded behind him on the GT4 field, and I don't think his conflicts are quite yet at an end. Taking a look out back, there is the trouble. That's what we've been waiting on there. Yellow flags are out, and it is disaster here at Watkins Glen. You just knew that one was going to happen. Bus stop chicane has given us an absolute pile up. Out behind, you can see just behind that of Henry Freeman is when the gates of hell itself opened off the exit of the inner loop chicane. That is a disaster. You can see the aftermath of it all there as caught up among the fray. I believe they're just getting out was the number 1. That's Liam Larson. You can see Carter van der Zwaag, who started from the pit lane, has now got back up and ahead of him. That has been quite the shocker there. Justin Benson leads over Destin Herget with Jamin van der Zwaag in third. Henry Freeman now fourth with Chase Hamilton up to the top 5. Behind them there, the number 3 Mercedes of Peyton Lopez. Then Traitor Phantom, and rather curiously here, that is a GT4. Cal Ford got the jump on Clinton Bourne during that massive pile-up down at the inner loop chicane, and this titular little GT4 stands toe-to-toe with, I believe they're right behind him. Is that Grzegorz Taczkowski? It is. Taczkowski on a blinder of a start as well. I would not have expected that one. Immediately into the pit lane, we see there a damaged Mercedes. Of course, we saw briefly a moment ago there was Lopez into the pit lane. What a start things have come to be here at Watkins Glen International. Grzegorz Taczkowski, a man on a mission, and more trouble there. That is the 991. Radoslav Kowalczyk out at the 90 as he rejoins the field into a pack of GT4 cars. What on earth is happening here in Watkins Glen, New York? I have simply not the words. Herget under siege then. Van der Zwaag's on the prowl here for that P2 spot. Lexus looking to emerge from Ford's shadow after a dismal qualifying left them out of the front row. Van der Zwaag was so close yet so far away, but now the opportunity is as rich as ever. Ferrari, though, really taking the baton and running with it there amidst a chaotic start. Freeman and Hamilton of the Freeman Sim Racing lineup, they have really excelled here. They've thread the eye of a needle to make that 4th and 5th place spot up ahead of Traitor Phantom in the number 11. You can see minor damages there for that Porsche. Up ahead, Morales and Taczkowski, Rusnak and Kalsi to round the top 10 out. We do see as well then for, I believe here, behind, I want to say there is the ongoing fight here between these two. Yes, that is Anthony Flores versus Traitor Magetsu, as we now see from behind them the two leading GT4s, that being Cal Ford and Clinton Bourne. Behind them is Danny Medina, side by side here between the 666 and the 777. Mugetsu tries to run things from the inside at turn 8, then on to turn 9. Flores to the inside. Up towards turn 10 and 11 as the cameras now pan over to these cars. The 777 takes up command of 11th place. Great move then by Flores. A switchback from turn 8 to 9 there. Held it from the outside at turn 8 at heel in towards turn 9. Maybe an area we failed to pick up on in the discussions of overtaking opportunities, because that one has worked rather well for Flores at this time. 5 minutes in then towards the VPR 2 hours at the Glen, and a very strong start then by Justin Benton in the number 12. He's up and ahead of Destin Herger in second, and Jamin van der Zwaag in the top 3. Then rounding out the top 5 for the GT3s is Freeman and Hamilton. Behind them, Traitor Phantom, Mike Morales, Grzegorz Tachkowski, who I should point out has had one of the best starts of this race today, having started from the back, thread the Iron Needle down here at what was a disastrous start, and taking a look on the replays as to what happened down here at the inner loop chicane on the opening lap of today's race. And this is what created all of those opportunities for Tachkowski. You can see 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I believe that was, possibly more, 9, 10 just off screen there as well, for trouble in the GT3s. That spilled over into the GT4 crowd, which is what allowed Cal Ford to get the jump on his teammate Clinton Bourne. Now actually see between the two MCR Chevrolets here, that is Alex Pratilas. He was caught up in that skirmish down at the inner loop chicane. Now trying to get up into 14th place. He won't have much of a hard time with it there. Toe-to-toe with the Chevrolet later onto the brakes there. But as it's worth noting, was all the way on the outside of the marbling, so had a very little grip to work with. That has really been quite an interesting debacle then on this grid. I mean, I'm really still at a loss for words for that performance by Tachkowski. I was not expecting to see him up the order that quickly, but of course, chaos creates opportunities, to quote Sun Tzu, so Tachkowski knows that better than anybody else. Getting that 284 up to 8th place, having started outside the top 30, I should point out as well. That is really quite remarkable. Watching here, this is Traitor Mugetsu. We saw them previously fighting with Anthony Flores, now sets up a fight against this one here, Matthew Kelsey, who dropped in behind the pair just a moment ago. Down through to the 90. The 44 runs out wide, using a bit of the NASCAR line here through turn 1. Now looking out back, as we just see very wide there on the run in towards the S's, was that of Anthony Flores, but he's looking fine indeed off the exit of turn 4. So I thought I could maybe seen him into the wall there a moment ago. We see here with this one, massive battle forging in through the GT4 field. Dan Baxter on the inside of Tuur Krikken. Krikken sets him up for a switchback. Great move there by the Belgian talent in the 2-1-2. Keeps that position, emerging right along with them there. That, I believe, is the Ford of, I want to say that is Liam Larson in with them as these GT4s spill up through the S's side by side here between Bailey and Bailey and Krikken, with Baxter right behind. Up in front of them there is Jeremiah Lowy. That Ford threading the Iron Needle, I can't stress that term of phrase enough here, because that really is the case. As we see there, Tuur Krikken forced to cut across, but he didn't realise those barriers, yes they are, I believe, plastic in real life, are made with pure reinforced tungsten. As he slams the wall there, he's facing the wrong way, trying to get back onto the track. This is certainly yellow flag conditions we're seeing here. That Aston Martin has seen its day. That is one mangled looking Aston. Off of the highs of that great performance in his fight there with that of Dan Baxter and Bailey. That has really come apart in his hands. I don't believe he was expecting those barriers to not be destructible. Really, were this a real race, that wouldn't have been an issue for Tuur Krikken. You can see that steering system's compromised, and he's into the Armcos there just before turn 6. And this could very likely be his day in the sun over here at Watkins Glen. Looking back up into the GT3 field, Rusnak v Flores v Mugetsu. Now, Flores has been a curious one to watch from the back of the top 10. In their fight with Traitor Mugetsu down at turns 8 and 9, that was something to behold in the last couple of minutes here. And now we see the next chapter of which for Anthony Flores. Let's go to catch on board with the triple, looking here, I believe the triple 4. We do note there the 2-1-2 still further confounded issues as we quickly glance in to see here the fight up for 7th place between Yaschuk, Russell, Herzog, Rogers, and as it would stand there, Richards as well, who was caught up in earlier troubles today. You see there with Evan Rogers, he's catching up towards Logan Herzog. Now it's worth noting both of them do harbour a little bit of damage there. We see trying to go for the inside, Rogers cut off at turn 1. Watching here from Declan Russell's point of view, a curious little look in with the only Audi on the grid in GT4. Finds himself currently in Division 9th. So let's go to catch on board here with Flores. There was a very curious fight starting to develop. Another glimpse in here. This is with the number 69, as they now fight with Dan Baxter, the BMW outpacing them, then tries to cut off that of Dustin Hicks, and the number 27 tries to go for the inside at the inner loop chicane. Oh my goodness, a big step out there for the number 69, and that's left the door wide enough there for the near arrival of Dustin Hicks. These GT4s, I mean, it is a far cry of what we're seeing in GT3. These GT4s are mauling each other here at Watkins Glen. It's been a brilliant sight to see. Right now, this is in the ongoing fight for, I want to say this is Division 4th up for grabs here, with Lowy, Baxter, Bailey, Hicks, and Yaschuk in contention at the moment. Up through turn 7, trying to cover off Hicks. We do note for the 74, that's trouble out back there, down at chute corner. There are yellow flags out for the middle sector, and back into the pit lane goes the number 74. That's their day over. A heartbreaking development then, as we now see here with Bailey versus Hicks. Hicks from the outside, then Yaschuk tries to follow on through. In towards turn 9. What can the number 69 do here from the point of view of the Porsche? Of course, they are at disadvantage under BOP listings for today. Tries to cut off an advance by BMW, but loses ground to Chevrolet. Up through to turns 10 and 11. You can see right behind him, that is Peyton Lopez in GT3, having already taken one of their first mandatory pit stops of 2 available to them today. And a clip against the wall there off of turn 11. More trouble for the number 69. Lopez now on their inside, nearly keeps the door open long enough for the arrival of Pavel Yaschuk. For Josh Bailey, this has been a bit of a tough little battle from just outside of the top 5 in division, up through the S's here, nearly being shoved along by Yaschuk. You can see trying to escape the slipstream now. The rapidly approaching, you see there off in the grass, that is, I believe, yes, that is the 57. That's Alex Faubert, who tried to get out and ahead there of Declan Russell in GT4, only to run into, oh, up in front there. That's way more trouble than one was expecting. As cutting onto the onboard cameras out in front, that was Peyton Lopez in the wall. You saw the dust start to collect there just through the inner loop, and that definitely was some telltale signs to us that there was trouble afoot. And taking a look out front, Mercedes jump scare, as quoted there by Declan Anderson in chat, and aptly so. Lopez jumps right up on the nose here of Josh Bailey in the 69. Out through turn 7 we go on the boot section of the Watkins Glen International. You see now side by side looking to get up and ahead. Pavel Yaschuk's got the run here. The BMW is faster than the Porsche on straight lines. In through to turn 8, now turn 9. Great move then by Yaschuk, but can he hold it away from the more maneuverable Porsche and Audi behind? Only time will reveal the answers. Looking up front then for the GT3s after nearly a quarter of an hour worth of racing here at Watkins Glen. It's a 1.2 second gap amongst traffic at the moment between the 2 leading Fords of Benton and Hergert at the head of the field, with Van der Zwaag currently in 3rd, Freeman 4th, and Hamilton rounds out the top 5. Phantom in 6th place, Morales right behind then, as it would stand, in 7th place. And this has really been the talk of the town here. Grzegorz Tachkowski, I mean, that was a formidable start. One that he snuck through the masses there. The ninja of the grid then, the 284, up to 8th place. He holds that for the time being. He's 4.2 seconds from the nearest position. We see the still ongoing fight between Rusnak, Flores, and, as it would stand then, Traitor Mugetsu. Matthew Kelsey could be going toe-to-toe in a moment's time for 12th place with Radoslav Kowalczyk, the number 991. Rounding out the GT3s at the moment of the original runnings, the ones yet to have taken their mandatory pit stop for today's event, is Carter Van der Zwaag. Heading up the GT4 field, then Cal Ford in an exchange of the lead with teammate Clinton Bourne. Danny Medina makes it a Chevrolet 1-2-3. Then we see Dan Baxter in 4th. Jeremiah Lowy rounds out the GT4 top 5. You can see a huge spill of cars coming in from behind. Pavel Yaschuk on that recent move over Josh Bailey now makes 6th. Now has their sights set on a top 5 with BMW to join up with Dan Baxter. You can see there the orange M4 trying to make its way up through turn 7. As Jeremiah Lowy moves to defend the last of the top 5 slots behind them. Josh Bailey, we see running out wide as well, was the same story there for Declan Russell. Now being passed up by Peyton Lopez, who a moment ago we saw sideways off the exit of the inner loop chicane. You can see the damage on the nose of that Mercedes as he gets up past that of Josh Bailey. Now has his sights on Yaschuk. You can see it is traffic chaos there. As long with him there, you can see in 32nd place, I should say, the number 26 of Jaden Johnson-Ward, also trying to make their way up through the field. This is going to be a huge consideration for these drivers in the wall there in the background. That's Josh Bailey. Josh Bailey, who now could be susceptible for an attack here on the inside at turns 10 and 11 by the Audi of Declan Russell. Further down the line, Evan Rogers, Will Richards, and Bryce O'Gilvey. The next pack of GT4s. And then we have our drivers who have already come into the pits at least once since that opening disaster. So we see here with Alex Pratilis in 27th, then Fabian Yahure 28th, Karina Stinson in 29th, and recently into the pit lane there, the number 27. That's Dustin Hicks. Not too long ago, we saw him fighting amongst the GT4s. Now he finds himself relegated to the back of the top 30. Alex Faubert in 31st, Jaden Johnson-Ward 32nd, Alex Miller in 23rd, and Liam Larson in 34th. So for Tua Cricken, came into the pit lane, but I believe because he didn't take on fuel, it didn't fulfill anything of the mandatory pit stop. He still has 2 to serve. Taking a look in here. Rusnak v Mugetsu as he gets the jump on the 503. A moment ago was the case where Anthony Flores got up into 9th. Right now watching here with the fight for 10th place. Travis Rusnak trying to hold off Traitor Mugetsu and Radoslav Kowalczyk as they make their way up and around turn 1. You can see great run by Mugetsu. Now for the inside for the run up through the S's at turns 2, 3, and 4. Holds their ground and takes up 10th. Great move then by the 666. Very, very confident start to this lap from Traitor Mugetsu to get up and ahead of Rusnak, but they're a victim of their own successes here because onto the back straight, there's a lot of momentum being carried between these three as they're in a slipstream train up towards the inner loop chicane. Had it been any closer, there would have been the threat of an overtake on the horizon there. You see a bit of a wobbly run for things, and there we see the 991 snaps around. That was Radoslav Kowalczyk, fortunately out of the crisis zone, as it would come to be the case here at the inner loop chicane, but he is also out of that fight for 10th. That does invite in Matthew Kelsey, a few seconds away at the moment, but could close in a moment's time on the 2 Mercedes cars fighting for 10th place. Meanwhile, observing action from down in GT4, of course, Jeremiah Lowy versus Pavel Jaschuk comes to a head now, with Jaschuk into the top 5, Lowy in 6th. Further behind as well, Russell v Rogers. This currently rages on for control of 8th place in division. So Declan Russell in the number 95, the sort of golden brown Audi, versus the black and yellow number 25 of Evan Rogers. So getting up past him a moment ago was Miller, unlapping himself from these cars. Rogers on the prowl here. You can see getting up and around him. That's the Ferrari of, I want to say, that is either one of the Freeman cars, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, that is the number 48. That's Chase Hamilton. See, behind him is Mike Morales closing in hot here. He's got less damage than Hamilton. He is hungry for a top 5. And some nearly 20 minutes into this race at the moment, the action is far from over. Two worlds collide then here at the 2 hours of the Glen. Out back here, Kowalczyk v Van der Zwaag. That being Carter Van der Zwaag in 13th place. That trouble for Radoslav Kowalczyk saw him fall all the way down to the back end of the main bulk of GT3s. He's down to 14th at this time. Mugetsu now sets the chances on fighting with Flores, but that has quickly come to a halt. The 666 goes around at the inner loop. Swift recovery. Can they get that one up and running before they drop out of the fight? I mean, I will say, as far as recoveries go, let's get a look at that on the replay. That was silky smooth. Albeit was a bit of trouble, of course. You just saw they nicked the left-hand side of the car on the start of the inner loop chicane. That's what set it on that collision course. But as far as recoveries go, it's certainly among the more stylish there from Traitor Mugetsu. Very well handled. You can see as far as their hardships go, they've fallen in behind by looks of it at this time, that of Matthew Kelsey. We do see new fight on the climb here. Freeman versus Van der Zwaag, that being Jamin Van der Zwaag. So we see continued strife in GT4. Let's go to catch on, though, with this incumbent fight for 3rd place. Seeing here, Jamin Van der Zwaag navigating his way up through traffic. You can see up over his nose there, that's Danny Medina into the inner loop chicane. And there is a lot of pressure surmounting in the driver's seat of the number 9 at the moment, trying to hold the last of those podium positions. It may be a bit of a fruitless effort to go toe-to-toe with Ford in a car that has been around on GT3's grids for over a decade. But the nearly immortal Lexus RCF still yet to have found a suitable heir to the Lexus GT3 throne. Fight on for another day, and right now is going to go toe-to-toe with the latest of Ferrari's developments in GT3, the 296 introduced only a few years ago. The 317's in trouble. We do have a yellow flag out at the exit of the inner loop chicane, so I think logically speaking we all know what's happened here for Morales. He's gone around, but he's now back up and running, albeit having fallen down a fair piece of the order. Looking here with the furthest fight up the field at the moment, P3 in GT3. Jamin van der Zwaag versus Henry Freeman. Now, pound for pound here, the Ferrari's got everything on maneuverability. The Lexus has got everything on straight line speed. So it is a very curious thing to see the hammer and the scalpel of sorts of GT3's grids going toe-to-toe here. You can see the difference in maneuverability in turn 11. So much more rotation to be had there from the Ferrari. It's got the benefit of a more centered center of rotation. Gives it a lot more poke in the corners from having that mid-engine platform. Making our way up through the S's as they now get up past Cal Ford. Things could get a little bit spry there. Very nearly was contact between Ford and Freeman off the exit of turn 3 and 4. But that has created a bit of a pocket here for the number 9. 1.1 seconds now for Jamin van der Zwaag to hold third place. But there we see, just as we cut onto the menus there, running way out wide. That kicked the gates wide open for a move around the outside for Henry Freeman up to third. So as quickly as that gap formed up, it fell apart in a moment's notice. And that, you can really get the semblance here. The number 9 will be beside himself after such a simple error, I guess you could say. Now, having a look in here, this has been what we declared the ninja of the grid. He's been moving in silence through the majority of today's race. It's Grzegorz Tachkowski now setting his sights on a fight for 6th with Traitor Phantom. Let's go to catch on board with that McLaren. This could make for very entertaining viewing. We do just see there from the number 800 towards the back of the field. Let's go to look on board with Phantom v Tachkowski. At turn 7 was a little bit of contact, I think, there, just as we caught on with them. Watching from the defending angle, Traitor Phantom in the number 11. 6th place in GT3 at this very moment. Tucked under, you can see there, that is Will Richards in that mint green 115, but it's notably that red and black McLaren 720S, the big brother of the 570S it was alongside a moment ago, that sets his sights on 6th place. Watching in here with Traitor Phantom. Up and around into turns 10 and 11 here at Watkins Glen. So nearly half an hour in. How time flies when you're having fun. It has certainly been a very interesting day indeed. What a way to start off your Saturday morning if you're tuning in from Europe. To see some proper old school Americana here at Watkins Glen. Still one of our favourite circuits here on TRTN, especially of the American lineup on ACC. One of 4 available destinations alongside the Circuit of the Americas, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and the WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. You can see rapidly intercepting that Porsche. He's got so much more to give in the top end. Is that of Grzegorz Tachkowski, and we see a little moment of upset there for the number 11. That could kick the door open. We have seen this area to be the real axiom point on multiple rivalries on track over the course of this session already. Some 23 minutes on to the 2 hours at the Glen here on VPR live on TRTN. Now we are starting to see this fight for 6th come to a head here. Traitor Phantom. Now we must consider as well, we spoke a lot about what the McLaren has in store, but the Porsche we do know plenty enough about as well. And it's got tremendous stopping power. So in a lot of these corners that do require a very hefty use of that middle pedal, that is where the Porsche is going to have the McLaren dead to rights. On the run up through to turn 8 here, we can see trying to go for the outside was Tachkowski, but demonstrating right in front of our very eyes the point I've just made there, the superior stopping power of the Porsche to hold their ground over the McLaren. As they head up in towards traffic, though, you can see Clinton Bourne up over their nose there. 2nd place in GT4. They do not want to step in the way here of that number 6 for too long. Up and around turn 11, we see there snapping right onto the nose of Bourne as he actually made a little bit of contact there with Tachkovsky. And that creates another pocket, as we saw briefly for the fight between that of, I believe it was Freeman. Yes, in the fight with Van der Zwaag, and that quickly fell apart at the inner loop. So I'll be watching up into that section between my fingers here as we run up through to that area in a moment's time. Up through the S's, we see a little bit of trouble here trying to navigate out past the KTM of Karina Stinson of Malwar Racing, the number 800. It was curious to see Karina going back towards KTM following her previous stint at Maserati over on the GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series. Smaller 2-litre, I believe it's the EA113 engine we have in the KTM Crossbow. It's the one from the Audi, I want to say it's the Audi S3. Might even be the one from the Audi TT, as a matter of fact. A little turbo 4-pot. A remarkable little vehicle, though. Co-engineered by Reiter Engineering, the same company responsible for the REX on Assetto Corsa Competizione, of course derived of the Lamborghini Gallardo. We continue to see here Tachkovsky versus Phantom. This has been a rather entertaining battle to see so far, and there is news to follow from down in GT4s. We do take note, in fact, Cal Ford and Clinton Bourne are starting to converge on one another here for that leading fight. Now, I don't imagine anything would get a little too elbows out between the two teammates, as they will be looking to make this a 1-2 for Milk Crate Racing, regardless of who stands at the head of that field. We'll take a look away here from the brief fight between Tachkovsky and Traitor Phantom, just to get a look in with some of the fighting going on down in GT4. So, wow, wide there. That was Evan Rogers. He falls in behind Josh Bailey. Declan Russell might have the opportunity to make up a bit of a gap here. We do note as well the emergence of a new fight, not only between Bailey and Rogers. You see there, Rogers leaps for the inside down at turn 8. So as quickly as that fight started, it could very well end here with Josh Bailey on the outside, locked in behind Evan Rogers. There is that upcoming fight here, Jeremiah Lowy versus Dan Baxter. Certainly one to consider. About 8 attempts there, but closer still is Rogers v Bailey. And as we saw in the fight between the Lexus and the Ferrari, it came to that of Freeman versus Van der Zwaag. It is the hammer and the scalpel, so to speak. The Chevrolet, phenomenal on the straights. Not too bad in the corners itself. The Porsche will have it dead to rights in the corners. You can see that is how Josh Bailey is able to keep up here just before the run onto the straight. He's actually looking to get a bit of slipstream here, getting greedy now, savouring both sides of the plate, so to speak, with both Ford and Chevrolet. Looking up towards the head of GT3 to reveal a 6.2 second gap between Herget and Benton. Not for nothing here, Destin Herget does hold that fastest lap on today's event. So he certainly has the pace for it. Taking a look here on the scope of a possible overtake at turn 8 at the heel section. Grzegorz Tachkovsky goes for the inside, but he is setting himself at the possibility for a switchback there from Traitor Phantom, who's around the outside at turn 9. Question being, can he hold his ground? Tachkovsky forced onto the more shallow line of 2, but he still holds his position for the run-up in towards turn 10. Now, this is where it could come to a head here, because a good exit from turn 11, we mentioned before, can absolutely set one up for the chances of an overtake. We see, though, solid run of things there by the McLaren. The Porsche still along with him for the run-up to the 90. Nearly 30 minutes in, we do note Traitor Mugetso is now into the pit lane. We saw there a very stylish interpretation of a recovery down at the inner loop chicane a few laps ago. We just see them emerge behind these two during their ongoing fight. Following then with Tachkovsky. I mean, he's up to 6th from the back of the field. It has been an incredibly impressive run so far for the number 284. Entered with nothing to speak of in qualifying, and has turned what was rubble at the end of quali into a city of marble, so to speak, for the 284. Looking out behind, it is worth noting here the ongoing fight between these two, and they're following along behind by the car in 19th place. That is Fabian Yohure. We see this is the fight between Carter Van der Zwaag and Anthony Flores for 9th place. Up through to the inner loop chicane. This has been the area of contention for so many over the course of today's event. do find then to be the case. These two absolutely glued to one another for the run up through the outer loop. Now, it is worth noting in the pit lane at the moment is the 2-1-2. I believe Tua Cricken may be out of this race. Sadly, of course, we saw their major incident down at the inner loop chicane where they tried to cut across the track, not realizing that those barriers were made of, I can only imagine, adamantium. In a real-world scenario, would have plowed straight on through, but that stopped him dead in his tracks there. That was a remarkable thing to see, such a tiny barrier hold up a 1.2, 1.3 ton Aston Martin. Traffic up over their nose. That gap starts to advance in favor of Flores over Van der Zwaag. And now taking a look further down the field to see where the nearest fights may be coming from. It's way out back here between two separate divisions. Bryce O'Gilvey being lapped out past by Jaden Johnson-Ward and Matthew Kelsey, as it would appear to be the case. Patilas versus Mugetsu. Now, this is on the cards here for a possible fight. 14th place, last of the 7th row positions in towards the inner loop chicane. Now, it's definitely quite a troubling day so far for Patilas. Was caught up in that early doors incident at the inner loop chicane on the opening lap. Lost several positions for that reason. That singular incident is the reason he's not in the top 10 right now. Just past the first 30 minutes, he's done well to make his way back up into the top 15. Now looks to set his chances on a possible charge for 14th place as they head up through to toe here at turn 7. We do see as well along the back straight, Van der Zwaag versus Flores still rages on into the inner loop chicane. You can see it's so easy with that drop off of that curb to what would be the driver's left-hand side at the start of that section. To where the back end can step loose. We saw it a little bit there with Flores. We've seen it more extremely with others over the course of today's event. Back on with them in a moment, as we see here with Patilas versus Mugetsu. Up through towards turns 10 and 11. Number 17 on pit exit, we're told, at this time. That will be for Dan Baxter. So we did see them. Actually, they're on pit entry there, so very far up the pit lane. And one of the noteworthy things about Watkins Glen's got one of the shorter pit lanes on ACC, so it does make for very snappy pit strategy today. That will be core on the considerations of the drivers today. Two fights going on in GT3 during this time then. Flores v Van der Zwaag, that being Carter Van der Zwaag. Jamin Van der Zwaag currently 4th, 1.8 seconds from Henry Freeman. We're watching on with this fight here on the latter end of the field. Treta Mugetsu versus Alex Patilas. See them, fantastic move there down through the inner loop chicane. Of course, that area has been big trouble for Mugetsu. Of course, we did see their incident not too long ago, but getting a look here, got the run for the inside. Later of the two onto the brakes, door to door. That was really quite something. He takes a real set of stones to pull that one off in this area, considering how many people have had trouble thus far. Well handled then by Patilas. We see Mugetsu's out wide at turn 7. Can they keep things from the Armcos? Yes, they can. Fortunately, on this occasion. Flores v Van der Zwaag for 9th place. Now heads up into traffic. You can see up over their nose there. That is the GT4 leader, Cal Ford of Milk Crate Racing Chevrolet. Out through the outer loop we go. The 777 trying to put distance there on the number 4 of Carter Van der Zwaag. Heading down through to chute corner. Getting up past as well from the number 484 is Fabian Yahure. Now emerging at 16th place at this time. Danny Medina is into the pit lane by looks of it with damage. We're not sure if that was from the start of the race or just recently, but the 3rd place Chevrolet is now in. That allows Pavel Yashchuk to take up the podium for the time being. It's still a Chevrolet 1-2 in GT4. The Milk Crate Racing duo of Cal Ford and Clinton Bourne, you can see there, share the same stretch of tarmac down towards the run of turn 8. Oh, trouble there. That's in the wall for Flores, just as we caught on with the 777. Can we see any further detail in the replay? That's what I'm curious to find out. We see they emerged right onto the nose there of Radoslav Kowalczyk, forced him off track at turn 10 as they try to catch out past that of Cal Ford. Very little information there to be gathered. We'll watch that again on the replays here. But very difficult to make out what exactly. I think that might have been a turn-in. Not 100% sure. Yeah, you can see madly spinning there towards the wall on the left-hand side. unless it is incredible amounts of snap oversteer, which we know the Porsche can have snap oversteer, but I don't believe there was, I don't believe that was snap oversteer at all. That really, from the trajectory he was heading to the wall, that looked like a turn-in. So that might be under the scrutineering of the stewards not long from now. And moreover, he didn't rejoin safely. I was reading that in the chat there from Declan Anderson. I believe that's a running joke in sim racing. I can't remember who said it, but there's the whole. I want to say it was Jimmy Broadbent that said it. Reach safe jointly. But I can't remember the origins of it. Yes, it was Jimmy Broadbent. No, I'm not going crazy then. Pratilis v Lopez, 12th place then on the cards. We saw the move not long ago for Pratilis versus Mugetsu, so already willing to throw caution to the wind here. Knows their car at the back of their hand. It's going to be impressive to see what they do in this next overtake. Meanwhile, in the pit lane goes Chase Hamilton in the number 48. They're now in as these two rage on down through towards turn 1. And so if we can try to go and catch on board here with Pratilis, because heading up into another area of the track where they've had a very strong performance, this could be a very, very curious angle to watch from. Is that... Oh, that's Rusnak in the wall in the pit lane. Now, that is curious. I've never seen that one before. I've seen issues on the run into the pit lane. I've never seen issues on the run out. We see then, going for double trouble. Did it in the last lap on Mugetsu. Now does it here on Lopez. So nice he had to do it twice. I mean, Pratilis looks unstoppable in the inner loop. Now we see that trouble for Lopez has dropped him right onto the nose there for Treyton Mugetsu. So Peyton Lopez has got his work cut out for him for 13th place. There is still that chance, of course, for 12th. But given the momentum Pratilis has had in the last couple of laps here, I would say it's a very tall order to go toe-to-toe with the number 10 and succeed here. The Mercedes cars do look to be on the loftier end of things, of course, to bring back up that discussion of BOP. They are the heaviest in class with 20 kilos over what would be BMW's 4 kilos shed away for today's event. So it's any surprise they're struggling. Up in front, Miller and Baxter. Watching here, caught in the eye of the storm. Doing a rock at a hard place. Number 1 is in. Hang on just a tick here. We do have a retirement on our hands. From the number 1, Liam Larson is in, and that could be his day over here in Watkins Glen. We're down to 33 cars. It could be 32 within the next couple of minutes. The straw that broke the camel's back for the number 1 has brought about the end of his day here in Watkins Glen International. Watching back in with Peyton Lopez. Alex Pratilis tries to get up and away from him there, as it nearly ended up being a bit of a civil war amongst the BMWs. The newer M4 passing out the older first generation M4. See they're driven by Dan Baxter. As the two Mercedes cars continue to spar for 13th place. Treyton Mugetsu versus Peyton Lopez. Through to the inner loop chicane. Nearly 40 minutes in on this race, so we're stepping ever closer to that halfway mark. None of these two Mercedes cars, you see both of them have taken the first of their 2 mandatory pit stops, so they do have ball in their court for a bit more of an open-ended approach. Up in front, that's Tachkovsky. Oh my word, no, that has been horrible. Tachkovsky. He's been turned around off the exit of turn 5 by the looks of it. I mean, there can't be many other reasons to be facing the wrong way. We see here from the two Mercs. And, we see on the live footage, actually, there's been a disconnect. So we'll be back to you in a moment's time here. Do bear with us. Hopefully that's the last of our tech troubles there. We're back onto the field. Fortunately, it didn't take the rest of the server with it, but it did take us. If I had to take a wild guess, I think that is or looking at the time, actually, about 6:15 in the morning. Yeah, usually early hours of the morning. For whatever reason, my Wi-Fi just cuts out. £55 a month, I'd like to remind you. I pay a king's ransom for that stuff. 284 in trouble then, of course. So we now see the possible end of Grzegorz Tachkovsky. And that was disaster for him. I mean, taking a look back in towards that replay, we were watching on with the fight going on between the two Mercedes cars at the time, Lopez versus Mugetsu. Out in front, there you can see huge hit in the aftermath of Tachkovsky going around. I'm not sure for what reason. We suspected there was the possibility of a possible turnaround at the time. We see Traitor Phantom is in as well. And that's opened the door up here for Radosław Kowalczyk and Anthony Flores. The two Porsches will move up now to 6th and 7th, so it would appear. And Destin Herget is now in of his own volition. He's looking to play strategy now on the first of his 2 mandatory pit stops today. That does open the door up. And as we see, following in immediate response is Henry Freeman. Jamin van der Zwaag now takes up control of 2nd. Justin Benton, however, stays out at the head of the field. Now he does have the difficult decision of what exactly does his strategy look like. Does he stick to his guns on what he was originally planning for today? Or does he play a little bit more reactionary, knowing that Herget has the pace to match him on today's event? Heavy is the head that wears the crown, of course, and with Benton already having delivered in the past on dominant performances here at the Watkins Glen International Circuit, or being in a time spent with Mercedes in GT2, his GT3 performance isn't leaving any gaps in the portfolio, so to speak. He is very, very on it. Morales will move up towards 3rd. It's been a fairly understated performance here for that of Mike Morales. He has been able to carve his way up through the field here, has had, I would say, compared to most, a bit more of a relaxed state of affairs on today's event. He's kept his head low, he's kept himself out of trouble, and under the radar, he's now on the podium for the time being. Into the pits comes Peyton Lopez. Of course, we saw them in their fight a moment ago with Traitor Mugetsu. Now, the nearest fight, Bratilis v Phantom v Mugetsu, so 2 traitors, as it would be. And that's not me taking a jab at them. That's actually what they've called themselves, Traitor Phantom and Traitor Mugetsu. Go toe-to-toe with Alex Bratilis just at the back end here of the top 10. And so, just some 40 minutes gone in towards the 2 hours at the Glen here. Justin Benton leads the charge over Jamin van der Zwaag in 2nd. Mike Morales makes 3rd. Destin Herget recently playing their first mandatory pit stop, so they are now 4th at this time, ahead of Henry Freeman. Radosław Kowalczyk in 6th, Anthony Flores in 7th, Chase Hamilton in 8th place, as we see them try to go 3 abreast here with 2 GT4s as side by side from behind them. That was the, I believe, the BMW of Pavel Jaschuk, who I'm told has a drive-through penalty for, I believe it was speeding in the pit lane. It was either that or it was for Josh Bailey. There are 2 drive-throughs to serve in GT4. He was side by side there with Danny Medina, and that could have ended in tears at the outer loop. Meanwhile, the leader, so to speak, or... Oh, no. We do see there. That looks to be trouble for both the Milk Crate Racing cars. We see in the pit lane goes Cal Ford, but have a scope of the damage there on Clinton Bourne's car. Now, I want to take a look back into that replay again. I know we're maybe overextending it now a little bit, but I wanted to see, were either of those 2 Chevrolets anywhere near that incident at the time? I don't believe, no, they weren't. They were down at turn 11, or turns 10 and 11 during the time of that incident. So this is, unbeknownst to us, what exactly has gone on here for Clinton Bourne and Cal Ford. Could they be in serious trouble? We see in the case of Ford, he's down in 29th overall now. Meanwhile, for Bourne, now being intercepted in the pit lane here by this one here, Evan Rogers. And the 115 we also see is now into the paddock as well. It's Will Richards possibly out of this race. The GT4s are starting to drop like flies here, and this has all been to the spoils of Danny Medina. Already having played his first mandatory pit stop, he gets up and ahead of both Rogers and Bourne, is now going to lead in GT4. Strategically speaking, still holds the cards to take a GT4 win here at the Glen. So this is looking to be a very cheery change of tune here for Danny Medina. Now, like we saw for Justin Benton, their last appearance on our screens, at this track at least, was on the GT Manufacturers Cup by TRC, of which they also spent a solid amount of time with Mercedes, and of which we saw a very vibrant performance from Medina. So it's no surprise then, like we're seeing for Benton, another strong performance here by Medina, albeit this one took a bit more of a slow burn to develop, but he's kept his head, such as in the cases we've seen there for not too long ago was for Morales before their pit lane run. They've kept their head low, they've kept themselves out of trouble, and that has paid dividends massively for them in today's event. Speaking of Morales, they did actually take their pit stop not too long ago. They now fall in behind Chase Hamilton, but up ahead of Traitor Phantom. Meanwhile, we do note here that Traitor Mugetsu has now dropped in behind Carter van der Zwaag, so drops away from their fellow Traitor. And again, not a jab. That is what they call themselves, Traitor Phantom and Traitor Mugetsu. Alex Pertillas now falls in behind. I believe that's Miller at this time, the fellow BMW on this grid in the number 46 car, the WRT BMW, if I'm not mistaken, making their way up around turn 7. 3/4 of an hour in towards the 2 hours at the Glen. We are stepping ever closer now to that midway mark, and it has been a very, very tough opening chapter. Drive-through penalty no longer being served here by Pavel Jaschuk. You can see he's in the pit lane. I think he's just contemplating now if he comes out of the pits or if he calls it quits on today's event. It has been a rough one. As one of a number of European competitors, they're up in the very early hours of the morning. I believe for him, this is totally gauging off of the fact that, yes, he competes for Poland. I've no idea if he lives in Poland, but if he does, I believe it's around about 8 o'clock in the morning, roughly. Might be 9 o'clock, but still, early hours of the morning for a sim race. I mean, realistically speaking, in esports, anything before 11 AM is early hours of the morning. So we see here with Traitor Mugetsu losing ground out to Carter van der Zwaag. In terms of the nearest fights on track, it's slim pickings now. This was one of the closest among them, as we now see the dust settle into that second half of the race not too long from now. We've seen with many drivers, now most recently including that of Jamin van der Zwaag, is this transfer to Lexus. There's always been this one toe in the pool, so to speak, when it comes to the curiosity surrounding the RCF. And we've seen many drivers take to driving the RCF, and it has proven to be quite a solid change of pace. I think one of the most recent occasions we had seen was for that of Declan Anderson, was this transfer away from Porsche and Ferrari over towards Lexus to deliver on an incredibly capable performance. We saw it in the closing rounds of the NLRL Sunday League Season 6, of which you can catch in archives here on TRTN and its TRTN YouTube channel. We've seen that this RCF it's always been at least on the short list for many drivers, both new and astute to ACC. It's always something they're willing to take the stab at. You can see for what reason that is. It's over a decade's worth of proven Japanese machinery. It is a very, very capable car and has seen action on this track over many, many years in the IMSA Sports Car Championship from the GTD class. A very, very solid bit of kit there. 5.4 litre naturally aspirated V8 engine. One of the fastest on ACC when it comes to straight line speed. Used to be the king of the road back in the early days of the game. Now it's the sort of last of the old guard here, of the older GT3s on Assetto Corsa Competizione. We saw the sort of flailing chapter for Aston Martin for the last couple of months. We saw the V12 Vantage on the grids across a few different series we covered here on TRTN, but that's now since, I would say, gone extinct for more preferable options. It is a shame that we've lost such a great machine as that, but I'm glad that we still have that slice of over a decade's worth of GT3 history still present on this grid, and it is still just as potent then as it is now. Of course, the car that has inherited its throne, so to speak, has been this one here, the 2024 Ford Mustang GT3. I mean, it was a very bizarre thing when a few years ago we heard that Ford was going to be developing a new GT car, since their last project was the GTE, which then won at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. That was a phenomenal... Oh, hang on a moment there. Just a moment away from the history lesson. That is trouble for, I believe, yes, the number 3. That's Peyton Lopez. Off at the inner loop chicane. They're in the wall of the outer loop. By looks of it, though, they've come within a hair's width of the Armcos. Oh, they've definitely come into the pit lane both times already. We might need to go in an extra time for a change of trousers there, because they have come dangerously close to a race-ending crash in the number 3 Mercedes. Fortunately, unharmed. So back on the talks of the Mustangs here, of Herget and Benton, the two leading Mustangs of this race. They're first and third overall, with Van der Zwaag in the middle. We see there, oh my goodness, what a leap. I mean, a millisecond more under brakes, I imagine there. That would have been Declan Russell turned into a Beyblade down at turn 1. That would have been an ugly sight for the Audi. They're currently second in GT4. I mean, it has been a real change of tune, as we saw for both Danny Medina, who now leads GT4, and Declan Russell, who now stands in second. Evan Rogers makes third place. Fourth place then for Clinton Bourne. There has been that downturn in performance. Not something he wanted for today's event, but he still has an hour and 10 minutes to try and claw his way back to a podium. And this is a curious one because of how sporadic things have been in GT4. We do have a KTM in the top 5. Karina Stinson with Maloir Racing. Now, we have seen her take GT3 top 5s before in the AM division on, I want to say it was the World Series, in her time spent with Aston Martin. We did even get to see at one point an AM podium for the number 800. So much has been the case, as we've seen as well for Medina and Russell. It's the ones that stay under the radar for the longest time in the race that usually come out on top in the end. We see then the plucky little KTM, only 2 of them available to the grid, with the other behind being Bryce O'Gilvy, behind in 6th place in the GT4s. They've just been plucking away at the grid here and have had quite a solid bout in the sun. Not something you would have expected coming in towards today's race, that the KTMs would start to pull in quite a solid latter of the first half performance. We do see here Flores v Hamilton. Now, this is a new fight on the charts. We'll go to catch on with the Ferrari. We see there from the number 9. That is... Oh, yes, there has been quite a fair deal of trouble for Justin Benton, as it would stand to be the case, because he has dropped now behind that of Jamin Van der Zwaag, who holds the lead. So what on earth happened there for Justin Benton down at the inner loop chicane that would forfeit him the lead of this race? Now, he's only by about a second here away from Jamin Van der Zwaag, so we'll be snapping between these two fights as they progress. We see here Anthony Flores versus Chase Hamilton. They're 3 abreast with Karina Stinson, and into the wall goes Hamilton. That is big, big trouble for Chase Hamilton at this time. Rocketed to the wall there. Side-by-side contact as he re-emerges from turn 9. You can see they went 3 abreast there. Karina Stinson all the way to the inside and just knocked out wide there by Flores. Hamilton's in the wall. That is trouble for him. But he is back out on track at this time, off through turn 11. Now, looking back in here with the drama up front, Justin Benton, one slip cost him the lead right now. Does Van der Zwaag use this as the opportunity to dive to the pit lane whilst he's ahead? No, as we see there, another slam with the wall by Benton. What has happened here? Things coming apart at the seams for Ford. In the background as well, we saw another knock with the wall there that I believe was Dan Baxter, the number 17 BMW, down in GT4. That is a very curious development going on then in the GT3 division. And Jamin Van der Zwaag, he's took the baton and ran with it. He's not wasting any time here. He saw the door open up for him down at the inner loop chicane, and he's not wasted any time. Since 1.3 seconds, he holds on Benton at this time. And it's just one little slip that has cost Benton. You can see a lot of damage there on the left-hand side, so I don't believe he was alone during this incident. You can see desperately trying to claw back some distance here on Van der Zwaag. Now, he knows under strategy he's still got the chance, but that gap that he previously held to Herget is starting to come down a little bit here. Now, they still hold about half a track's distance from one another. Benton still looks to be on the cards for the possibility of a win. Certainly looks most likely of all, but this little slip has definitely brought with it quite some concern for his future performance in this race. 1 hour and 6 minutes, just under 1 hour and 7 left to go. As traffic now reintroduces these two to each other. Van der Zwaag v Benton for the race lead. As we head out through Heel. One of the closest fights on track at the moment. Then for GT3, out back for the GT4s, it's Jeremiah Lowy versus Dan Baxter. Down towards turn 8 here at Heel. Lowy looking for the better of two exits. He's out wide there off the exit of turn 8, so Baxter holds ground. Back onto the GT3s as we head now past turn 11. They're side by side. You can see up in front of them there is the number 57. That is Alex Faubert with Mercedes. Van der Zwaag holds the inside, around the outside. There goes Benton and back up to the lead. There wasn't a lot of resistance there by Jamin Van der Zwaag. I think he's just playing things a little bit more pragmatically. Knows that under strategy at least, there's not really much point trying to fight this race lead, knowing he's going to have to come to the pits at some point today and then one more thereafter. He knows that it's a bit fruitless to keep challenging and ultimately cost himself what could be more positions on track further down the line under strategy. Meanwhile, number 44, and that is Matthew Kelsey. He does pick up a drive-through penalty, I believe, for speeding in the pit lane. For the number 44, he's just come out of the pit lane area, though I seem to recall overhearing that it could have also been due to track limits. It said it somewhere on the screen, but we just weren't looking at that at the time, as we were still discussing the fight between Benton and Van der Zwaag. Now we get to see here Hamilton v Flores. Picks up on where they left off on the run up towards turn 9. Of course, this was the site of their first incident when we last caught on with them. Down through, second time's the charm with these two. Nice and smooth now between these two as they head up through towards turns 10 and 11. You can see giving him the lights. He's not happy. I mean, with every reason. He's been shoulder checked off of turn 9. I don't think anyone would be too chipper to be seeing that same car again. Certainly a bit of bad blood between these two. You can see that, yeah, Chase Hamilton is getting right up in the grill of Anthony Flores. Now looking for the inside, dives for it down at the 19. The 777 tries to hold from the outside, washed out there after the 90. Great move, though, by Hamilton, but you can see he's definitely driving with a lot more assertion compared to his last encounter with Anthony Flores. That has been a much more heated exchange. Flores, they're giving him the lights, and it could be contact between the pair. Flores is out wide. Fortunately, in the case of Flores, having to avoid the walls, but he is not going to be happy whatsoever. That was a little bit of chicanery between those two, as it did force that of Flores onto the grass in efforts to avoid turning Chase Hamilton into the wall. And then there's a line you draw in the sand between something being cheeky and something being illegal in motor car racing. I do think we've just maybe took 1 foot over the line there with the case of Hamilton. Now, you could definitely make some context-specific indications about everything here. I mean, he was very clearly unhappy at the time. I don't think he was necessarily thinking straight. He was just sort of throwing caution to the wind. But I'm not 100% sure that the swerving was necessary there on the back straight. I'm not even sure if he knew himself he was swerving at the time. I don't think he was gauging the fact that Flores was catching up to him very quickly, I should point out, under the slipstream, and was right on top of him by the time they got into that section and had to dive onto the grass. Otherwise, he would have turned him into the wall. That's going to be a curious one for the stewards. You see here with Carter Van der Zwaag, out by his lonesome, just shy of the top 10. He does get... Actually, no, he's just in at the top 10 there because there has been some trouble for this one. Still no news on a Van der Zwaag pit, though. It has been rather interesting here for Jamin. Sorry, you just have to forgive us there, folks. My air conditioning unit was making some very weird noises. I'm going to go ahead and turn that one off before it blows up on the microphone. Give me one moment. Back onto the course of racing at the moment, and only a few minutes then from the midway mark. And into the wall, there goes Van der Zwaag. Big trouble as he runs out wide under the brakes at turn 6. Minor damages he's come away with there, but right onto the nose of Jaden Johnson-Ward, nearly took him into the wall. That could have got ugly between the two Japanese cars on the run up towards turn 7. Honda versus Lexus, a very rarely cited matchup. Now, of course, this is just in case here for Johnson-Ward to unlap himself from Van der Zwaag. I think with the number 9, there was a bit of a crossed wire, and we do just have to quickly divert our attention away there to see there is some trouble for the number, I think it's 17 here, which is now, we just see as well, number 97's in trouble, and that is for Bryce O'Gilvy, one of the 2 KTMs on the field. Smallest engine on the field as well, 2-litre turbo inline 4, mounted behind the driver's seat. The other being Karina Stinson just off the exit here of turn 1 and 2. Peyton Lopez versus... Oh, trouble in the wall there. There goes Rusnak in the wall. Big hit there. Ping-ponged from Armco to Armco. That was a big knock from there. He's fortunate to still come away facing the right way round, but you can see where he's run wide from turn 4. And there, clashes with one wall, slams into the other. I mean, that would have been the end of his race had this been a real race here at Watkins Glen. That would have bounced him all the way off into the other wall on his left-hand side. That would have been his race done. So he is very lucky to have walked away with the damages that he has, because that could have been a hell of a lot worse for him. You can see, though, it's not exactly sunshine and rainbows. His rear aero is damaged. His front aero isn't doing much better at this time. We are looking at a very likely possibility then for Travis Rusnak to come into the pit lane. Meanwhile, Jamin Van der Zwaag, following that little spur at turn 6, has now come into the pit lane. Has dropped off the jacks as we caught on with him here. You can see it is literally walking distance from the pit limiter line, so he has a very brisk exit. He joins the field there. Matthew Kelsey to his rear left. Declan Anderson in chat saying, no, it's very strategic, you see. Rusnak has the Zenvo wing, in reference to the Zenvo TS, I think it's the TSRS, and it's very bizarre hydraulic rear wing. I mean, it's cool. Yeah, I will say that rear wing. This is talking about the Zenvo, not about the Mercedes. And but it does look a bit daft. It's always been a puzzling thing to me, that rear wing assembly on the TSRS. Of course, the Zenvo lineage has always been a very bizarre one. Oh, what's gone on there? That is the number 3 again. I mean, he just can't catch a break at this point. It seems every time we've caught on with Lopez, something has been going wrong. There's only so much hardship one man can take. And poor Lopez, he has had it very rough today. Watkins Glen has not been the most kind to him. 58 minutes left to go, so we're beyond the halfway mark for today's event. Justin Benton leads the charge over Destin Herget in second place. Henry Freeman marks third place over Jamin Van der Zwaag in fourth. Radoslav Kowalczyk in the top 5, yet to have taken either of their pit stops. Chase Hamilton in 6th, Mike Morales in 7th, Traitor Phantom in 8th, Carter Van der Zwaag in 9th, and Alex Pratilis rounds out the top 10. Anthony Flores in the pit lane at the moment from 11th. Traitor Mugetsu will shift up to 11th place from 12th. Fabian Yahure currently 13th. Alex Faubert in 14th. Jaden Johnson-Ward in 15th. Miller 16th. Kelsey in 17th. Lopez 18th. And Rusnak in 19th. That, I believe, is actually an advanced position then for this one here. Grzegorz Tachkowski, who we believed to have been out of the race. He had that huge wipeout down off turn 5 a few laps ago. He has done very well to come back up through the order. And that is quite the miracle indeed. Meanwhile, for the GT4s, Danny Medina leads over Declan Russell and Clinton Bourne, currently in Division 3rd. Evan Rogers in 4th, rounding out the top 5, Dan Baxter. Oh, in the background there, that's more trouble, and that was the 484 being turned around on the back straight. Big trouble for Cal Ford. And taking a look on that replay, as we were looking to discuss the progress from behind for Jeremiah Lowy, we just saw behind there a collision between Radoslav Kowalczyk and Cal Ford on the back straight. Even more drama here at Watkins Glen. And Cal Ford has already had a very rough day here, stood at the head of the field for GT4. It has been a fall from grace here for the Chevrolet, much of which has been out of his control. This is the main hurdle one faces when it comes to multi-class racing. You have two broadly different performance categories, and it is very difficult to make them play nice. Our last visit to multi-class racing at Watkins Glen was in the GT Manufacturers Cup over on TRC, and that had GT2s, it had older GT3s, it had challenge cars from Ferrari's 488 Challenge, and the Super Trofeos from Lamborghini, the Super Trofeo Evo 2 model to be specific, the one derived from the Huracan STO. And somehow, those four were able to play nice. You stick modern GT3s and modern GT4s in the same bin, they are going to get into scraps, and we just see now the latest among it. The 484, you can see very badly damaged there following that big spin with the collision that ensued before it with Kowalczyk. And we've seen one half of that. Let's see the other half. You can see the Kowalczyk has effectively brushed off that. It's almost minor damages here for the number 991. Doesn't seem to be phased by it whatsoever. Meanwhile, though, that will be more than definitely into the pits for the 484 of Cal Ford. It has been a very, very rough day for him. Same for this one, though, with Peyton Lopez. He's back into the pit lane, I believe. May also be just contemplating dropping from this race. He has had a very, very tough day here at Watkins Glen. Drops from the jacks, though, so I don't think his day's quite yet done. No, he's on the move. Do see the emergence of a fight here. Jaden Johnson-Ward versus Alex Faubert. It's got a catch on board with the Honda now. It's been a while since we've been seeing a fight last particularly long on this track, and it's been longer still since we've had any opportunity to go on board with the Honda. Just quickly, though, here, we do see this is the fight for GT4 lead. And this has massively kicked off between Russell and Bourne as they make their way up through the S. As you can see, right along with them there is Destin Herget in second in GT3. Narrowly avoiding the wall. How has he come away from that one? I think there's a little paint left behind there on the driver's right-hand side wall. Oh, my word. Literally one more inch there to his right-hand side, and that would have been the most violent of ping-pongs for the number 6. That would have been one wall, then the other, and his race is done. How on earth has he done that? This is sadly, I should clarify, not division lead, so that's still held by Danny Medina. This is Bourne v Russell. Now, this is a curiosity because Bourne has been able to carve his way back up through. He is going to need one hell of a Hail Mary solution here in the next 54 minutes to retake the lead over Medina, but this has been a very admirable return for Bourne. However, his teammate, the 484, has had it much, much harder than him. So it'd be, I would say, unfair to make the comparisons between the two Milk Crate racing cars. They've had two broadly different races. Justin Benson is into the pit lane with 53.5 minutes left to go. So what we do understand of these GT3s, of course, in our several years covering them, they can easily take on a distance like this, 53.5 minutes of racing left to go. And these cars, I think, really flat out for it, can do about an hour and 10, hour and 20 on a full tank on a track like this. So they are more than definitely fueled up for it. But of course, has been the case for these teams and drivers over the years. They try to take on as little fuel as possible. It cuts down on fueling times and moreover keeps the car as spry as possible for the end of the race. But we have seen several occasions where that has come back to bite them on the backside and left them without any fuel. Destin Herget takes the lead then over Justin Benton. Henry Freeman moves up to second. You see here Jamin van der Zwaag looking to try and intercept Benton, but will be too late to do so. Benton is out of the pit lane and on his way back onto the track. 52.5 minutes left to go. Bit of a wobbly exit there for Benton, but all things considered, back onto the field. Joins in from the back of the podium. Freeman and Herget up in front of him. Meanwhile, just having a glance in then to see with Bourne and Russell. Russell, having been swamped in by approaching GT3s, now finds himself 4.5 seconds from Clinton Bourne. Grzegorz Tachkowski is in the pit lane, serving what looks to be the last of their pit stops in the 284. A 17th at the moment. And like we see for Justin Benton, I think they're trying to play for a longer strategy with easily 52 minutes of fuel available to him. Tachkowski could be trying to sneak his way back up into the top 10. Of course, didn't take particularly much to do so in the first place. Albeit it did require a massive pile-up at the inner loop chicane, but beyond that point, he still had the pace to hold a top 10 position. He was just beset by major troubles down at the... Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I really need to stop talking. Commentators' curses are a real thing, folks. Do consult your nearest medium if you don't believe in curses. Because, believe you me, they're real. You don't want to play around with curses whatsoever. I mean, hell, being uncursed is what gave the New York Knicks their title this year, so you don't play around with curses, folks. You see then with Henry Freeman, second place at the moment. A strong position from the hold. Very likely for there to be the chances he walks away with the podium today. Number 45 of Freeman Sim Racing. He's joined by Chase Hamilton. Hamilton we last saw on the Continental Racing League, racing for Freeman Sim Racing. These two have had quite an interesting day then with the two Ferraris up in the top 10. In terms of nearest fights on the track at the moment, scouring through, Jaden Johnson-Ward versus Alex Faubert. We were looking to catch on board with the Honda before we caught that incident earlier on, so let's go to see in with these two. Now trying to catch from the Honda's point of view, the attacking angle here with Jaden Johnson-Ward, rarely sighted on board with the Honda NSX. Last time we got to see one was Carlos Deitch, and his recent transfer to Honda. We saw earlier this week from Carlos Deitch with Honda was a charge up from the back of the field to second in this week's round of the OLRX VSR Midweek Championship, when we went live a few days ago from the Suzuka International Racing Course in Mie Prefecture, Japan. It was a great night of racing there with the first wins of the season for Jaden Johnson-Ward on your screens at the moment in the 26. It was also the first win of the season for Lee Evans. And the championship would be sealed in silver by Leroy Donald, and an overtake of the championship lead in bronze by that of Callum Turner. You can catch the season finale coming up next week, 7 p.m. BST on Wednesday, the 12th of August, live from the Misano World Circuit and live here on TRTN. See a little out wide there from Johnson-Ward. Now, this is a step away from his previous car this week in racing, which was the Lamborghini Huracan Evo 2, the Honda NSX Evo. It has been a bit of a odd resurgence, I'm noting here, from the Honda. Now, we did get to see it from their fellow Japanese manufacturers in the last couple of months, Nissan, and then more recently, the rise of Lexus. But Honda has been one that's dodged a lot of that praise over the years. I think it's just because the car was a bit on the more awkward end for handling, but we do see there are those perhaps crazy enough to take to the helm of the NSX. You see for Johnson-Ward now fighting for a 13th place spot with Alex Faubert, number 57 in front. 48.5 minutes left to go here at Watkins Glen. Into the pit lane recently then, we see a myriad of drivers, among them Radoslav Kowalczyk, as well as Miller, Flores, and as it would stand as well, Yahure. Also into the pit lane with them at this time, Cal Ford. See, he's 8 laps down. I think he is just floating the idea now, as we are now down to 30 cars, himself included, from what I believe was 35, actually 36 at the start of the race today. Has been a very, very curious development over the course of today's race here at Watkins Glen. 48 minutes left to go. As for Jaden Johnson-Ward, that's up not only to 13th, but 12 along with it, as he gets up ahead of both Yahure and Faubert. Morales moves up to 6th place. Phantom moves up to 7th. As for Carter van der Zwaag, looks to try and get the jump here on Radoslav Kowalczyk, who we do know has not met the, or at least... Oh, wait, no, because he does have 2 mandatory pit stops. I forgot about that one with Kowalczyk. Yes, so he has another one to serve. He's played that first one incredibly late. He's done very well, I should say, to play this stint out. It was about an hour and 13 minutes worth of racing, so we were right on the ball there when it came to the fact that fully fueled up, these cars can do about an hour and 20 at a push here at Watkins Glen. So I was a bit confused there. I thought it was a case where he hadn't met the requirements of the mandatory pit stop. No, I think it was a case where He has 2 mandatory pit stops. That has been a curious case about Kowalczyk and his strategy today. He's really been rolling with the punches, and you got to hand it to him here. He's nearly unstoppable in this current form. He's had quite a few hiccups over the course of the race, some spins here and there, but he's just still hammering away. Chase Hamilton now into the pit lane. Recent developments then from the 48. This could shift Morales up to a top 5 here for the time being. It's been a strong performance, albeit one that we mentioned earlier was on the tad understated side here for the 317 Mercedes. Sneaking his way around the field. As we mentioned in the talk surrounding GT4, it's the ones that stay under the radar, the ones you've got to watch out for the most. So again, I would keep an eye on this one here, the number 800, who was not too long ago in the top 5 for GT4. This is Karina Stinson of Malwar Racing KTM. And she's got a pretty good chance today, I'd say, of a top 5, because strategy-wise, there's, of course, looking here, 5 cars up in front of her. Medina, Bourne, Russell, Rogers, and Baxter. Oh, and Lowy. So, 6 cars there up in front. I have a very bad time counting. And it's a case where under strategy right now, there's a pretty sizable chance that Baxter and Lowy are in range. You see here with Russell and Rogers, ongoing fight here for what is standing as Division 3rd for the GT4s. Declan Russell, not too long ago, clashed heads with Clinton Bourne, now goes toe-to-toe with another Chevrolet, that being Evan Rogers. Jaden Johnson-Ward, I'm told, is now in the pit lane. Rogers runs wide there, but following in his midst is the Audi of Russell. So as more and more drivers float the idea of that second and last pit stop, we are seeing here the continuation of fighting in GT4. The question being, with damage on the nose, what compels Rogers to the pit lane? It looks to be this lap here. So in goes the number 25. So returning to the podium is Declan Russell in the 95 Audi. Back up to 3rd place. Destin Herget leading. After Justin Benton's pit stop, we've still yet to see anything in reaction to that. Herget holds the fastest laps. We know the pace supports the possibility of a race win today, but he has to have that strategy nailed down. Right now, he's within about 20 seconds of Justin Benton, meaning if he comes into the pits, regardless of what he does now or later, he will be intercepted and Benton will have the lead back off of him. The question being, by how much more could the gap grow between the 2 Mustangs? There is still the very high chance of a Mustang 1-2 here at their home race in America, albeit I would still say it's a bit of a hop, skip and jump from their facility where they were manufactured, and even more so from the facility where they were honed into GT3 spec. Built in Michigan, then mastered in Canada by the folks at Multimatic Racing. One thorn in their side, though, is this Ferrari here, Henry Freeman. A last-second entry to the 2 hours at the Glen. Freeman has come in and really shown up competition today. It's been a very capable performance from the 45. He's had his share of ups and downs alongside teammate Chase Hamilton, but these two still soldiering on from inside of that top 10. It's impressive stuff from the Ferraris. They were not expected to be competitive today in the wake of Ford dominance in GT3, and following along with them was Jamin van der Zwaag with Lexus, and moreover was Alex Bratilis with BMW. So there was fickle chance that Ferrari would be this competitive today, but when pen meets paper and you stop considering just qualifying pace alone, the Ferraris really do have a lot up their sleeve. Trouble there for Carter van der Zwaag, forced to run wide from the inner loop, forfeits position to Radoslav Kowalczyk and to Chase Hamilton. Could even be a triple header with Bratilis behind off the exit of turn 5. 43 minutes left to go here at Watkins Glen. As we continue to watch on with the fight here between Hamilton, van der Zwaag and Bratilis. A note on something we'll be touching on later on this weekend in our coverage of the next event tomorrow at 2 p.m. BST. And our coverage of the HCCL Silverstone Bring 'em All is the news that TRTN is now one of the official broadcast partners of XCL. And you can now find coverage of TRTN events available on the XCL website via their news and media portal. We're very excited to be partnered alongside XCL in this growing development and their restructuring of their organization. We're alongside them to cover things news and streaming wise. Hopefully for further collaboration in the future on some XCL events. The last time we covered an event on XCL was part of the Season 2 of the Pro Series in our part-time coverage of the first half of the Championship, where we co-led alongside XCL TV the coverage of Season 2. It was a great time then. We look forward to more collaborations in the future. We'll speak more about it tomorrow, though, in our new segment at the Silverstone Bring 'Em All. In the pit lane at the moment, I should take note of this as well, looks to be the number... looking there, reduced to the pit lane is the 503. Yes, that is Travis Rusnak. So trouble for the Mercedes, and continued trouble, I should illustrate as well. We see joining them in the pit lane is Traitor Mugetsu. We see further down the line there is the Chevrolet of Cal Ford. We see caught up in traffic mayhem here, Van der Zwaag, Hamilton and Kowalczyk now go head to head. We see behind them is Pratilis, so this is really sizing up to get a bit ugly here with GT4 and GT3 all over each other. Let's go to catch on board here with that of Pratilis in his pursuits of Van der Zwaag. They caught up in the pack here with the GT4s. Right behind them, that's Fabian Yahure alongside Dan Baxter and Danny Medina. So worth noting in the case there, that's Medina at the lead of GT4 at this time. You see in the wall there was Pratilis as well. A scrape of the arm codes off the exit of turn 9 in towards turn 10. Dan Baxter, 4th place in GT4, side by side with Danny Medina, 1st place in GT4. So it shows worlds apart here in the GT4 division. They were really caught up in the first half of the race for incidents. Meanwhile, Destin Herget is now in. That leaves Freeman to go up into the momentary lead of this race. Number 45, Ferrari, now leads here in Watkins Glen International. Justin Benson gets the jump on Destin Herget as they leave the pit lane. Question is, as they fall in behind Jamin Van der Zwaag, what is the chances of them retaking the possibility of a podium? Still, I would say very high. Hamilton now ahead of Kowalczyk and Carter Van der Zwaag. We do note for the 44, they're coming into the pit lane at a rather slow pace here. I think there might be damage. Yes, there is for Matthew Kelsey. And that is one seriously battered Ferrari. You can actually hear a little bit. I think we heard as he scraped his way on past. That's the sound of one of the tyres dragging. And we can see there, he's come to a dead stop. I believe this might be his pit box here. The number 44 is in serious disrepair. You can get a look barely through that damaged windscreen. So he's took a very sizable impact from the nose. Traitor Phantom now into the pit lane. Joining them is, by the looks of it there, that's Declan Russell. Now into the pit lane as Clinton Bourne continues to hold second. Danny Medina holds the lead for GT4. Carter Van der Zwaag withdraws to the pit lane, then no longer able to pursue that of Radoslav Kowalczyk. Pratilis from behind. So looking in here from the pit lane, Traitor Phantom, Alex Pratilis and Carter Van der Zwaag now all in the pit lane, the latest of which being Pratilis in the number 10. Also in the pit lane then the 44 heavily damaged Ferrari of Matthew Kelsey and Declan Russell joining them from the pit lane as well during this time. See here from Russell just dropping off the jacks, now on their way out from the pit lane. It's worth noting here in the fight for the lead, Freeman has been almost immediately intercepted by Justin Benton. So this could be a very curious development going on here. We see here from Henry Freeman's point of view for the race lead, I should point out as well, strategically, there's no chance he'll hold it. The question is, how much is he willing to fight with Benton over this one? Through turn 9 we go, here in Sector 3. Now making our way down through to turn 11. Now, excuse me, one of the chances here that Freeman tries to come in for a pit lane in the next couple of laps. With 36, just under 37 minutes left to go. Certainly on the cards. I think the worst of the fears are about to be realised here, though, for Henry Freeman. You can see he's already peeled out to the far edge of the S's. Wasn't looking at too much of a fight here over Justin Benton, knowing it would be much a fruitless effort to try and stand against Ford on the straightaway here on the back straight. And hang on, you can actually hear, listen to the engine real quick. There's a lot of lifting. Now that was a fumble of gears there, but we saw how slow he was going out from the back straight. I've got sizable suspicion to believe he might be about to run out of fuel, actually, so to speak. Look, you can hear it there. The early premature lifting of the throttle. He's coming off the throttle way earlier because he's lifting and coasting. He's trying to not use as much fuel as he would on a normal lap. This is a driver dangerously close to running out of fuel. So fair play to Freeman for running this higher risk, but you can see it is now starting to affect him in the long run. He's almost limping his way down through, trying not to drain that V6 dry of fuel, because that will be his race over. If I had to take a large guess of things, this is going to be him into the pit lane. I think one more lap is going to spell doom for him. We saw in the background there, Lopez nearly caught up in another bit of trouble. Medina and Ford still in the pit lane. Ford doesn't look likely to be coming out anytime soon, and as suspected there, Freeman's now in. I'm pretty certain he just rode the ragged edge of running out of fuel. He's done very, very well to hold out for that long, but I think a single lap more, that would have been the end for that Ferrari. That would have been stranded at the roadside with no fuel left in the tank. Justin Benton then leads here in Watkins Glen with 34, just under 35 minutes before the checkered flag. He's on the home straight now, after what has been nearly an hour and a half's worth of dominant form in the number 12. Jamin van der Zwaag's going to move up to second for the time being, as we see here for Henry Freeman, limped his way to the pit lane, very nearly ran out of fuel. Destin Herget moves up in towards third. Mike Morales is a fair distance away from inheriting a fourth place spot. It really does depend on how long that pit stop plans on taking for Freeman. Meanwhile, for Hamilton, they're in sixth, Kowalczyk seventh, Bantam in eighth, Matthias in 9th, and Carter van der Zwaag rounds out the top 10. Migetsu in 11th, Yahure in 12th, Johnson Ward in 13th, Faubert in 14th. And Miller rounds out the top 15 at the time being. He's right up over the nose there, you can see, of Mike Morales. Tachkovsky 16th, Lopez 17th, Flores in 18th. Currently leading then before taking his mandatory pit stop is Clinton Bourne in GT4. Danny Medina came in a moment ago. We'll see what the reaction is here from the number 6 side by side with the number 4 of Carter van der Zwaag. We'll get the run on him down towards turn 1 here. Meanwhile, Dan Baxter is in the pit lane here from what is currently third in GT4, though he's now lost that out to Evan Rogers in the Chevrolet number 25. Now, it was curious because we saw Rogers into the pit lane not long ago, and I would assume it was because of the damage on the nose of his black and yellow Camaro, but oh my word, up in front there, more trouble this time between Pratilis and Tachkovsky. It's always the incidents that happen off screen here. I mean, we saw there, Tachkovsky went for the inside. I think it was a case where he did a little too far back for that lunge, and you can see there, he's turned Pratilis into the wall. That has not gone well at all. Sadly, that's all the connective we have between those two. We don't really know what happened off screen. And that'll be up for race control to figure that one out. New fight here, Yahure v Mugetsu. Now, Yahure's been on a long climb back up to the top 10 here. Right now, 11th place is within reach for the Venezuelan talent. The number 28 now on the prowl for 11th off of Traitor Mugetsu. I mean, the not lying there in chat from Tamburini. The stewards are going to be very entertained after this race. They're going to have a longer watch through this race as we are right now. That is going to be a long day for them. I do not envy the job they have. Having done stewarding before in sim racing, it is a very, very messy business going through to turn 7. Now, Yahure's got maneuverability, Mugetsu's got top end, so much like we saw in the lineup between Ferrari and Lexus towards the start of today's race, there's absolutely the chances here for much the same to play out in Ferrari versus Mercedes. Out wide there was Baxter. In terms of nearby fighting, Flores v Lopez. Flores still has to come into the pit lane. Got the recent jump for 17th off of Peyton Lopez here. And the number 3. Meanwhile, we see exiting the same corner here, turn at 11 between Yahure and Mugetsu. Yahure looking for the inside. Later of the two onto the brakes, in towards the 90 we go. Holds his ground. The Mercedes has got a lot more oomph there under the right foot to keep up and alongside him through to the S's, but he's on the marbling there, so he's going to run out of space very quickly and falling in behind back in a single file. Great move by Yahure. The question is, does it stick, though, with Mugetsu right at his rear bumper? Will be in the slipstream on the Ferrari, could have the possibility of counter-attack as early as the inner loop chicane, but with the, I believe there, the number 21 in the mix, there's contact between them, and it takes there. That is the GT4 lead to be back to the wall. Oh, my word. It has all gone horrifically wrong. Danny Medina, who was on a cruising distance here to retake the GT4 lead, has been collected by an incident following a contact there between Trota Mugetsu and Fabian Yahure, a 3-car incident at the inner loop. And again, those pesky concrete barriers catching 3 cars worth of weight head on. A tap there from Mugetsu to Yahure. Yahure collected Medina. Medina had it worse of the 3 there. There's a little nudge to the wall for that of Yahure. Mugetsu just onto the grass, but it was Medina who had an absolute tank slapper to the wall. You see there is nothing he could have done. Already holding the brakes. Those tyres are locked, but once you hit the grass, you're a passenger and nothing more. That is absolute heartbreak, and that could very likely tip the scales for the possibility of a win by Clinton Bourne. Danny Medina, you can see there the scale of damage, and I'm not 100% sure, but I'd say there's a likely chance there of steering damage also for the number 21. Now, if you're in the mind there of the number 6, now I think he's just off in his own world here, just trying to make sure that he can keep himself in the clear and narrow. He doesn't need any trouble today. But were I in Bourne's position, obviously, it's a little bit unfair to make the comparison with the knowledge we have over what the drivers have on the field. But it's a case where you could definitely make the assertion he would have dived to the pit lane almost immediately. Oh, more trouble there, and that is Baxter, and also into the wall. I believe there, yes, there was Alex Faubert. This time at the 90. You're not lying in the stewards being entertained, because my goodness, I haven't seen this many slams since Monday Night Raw. This is getting rough now for these drivers. In through to the 90. We catch on there to see, collected by Yahure was that of Dan Baxter. And also into the wall went Alex Faubert. I mean, this is, oh boy, this is a long day for the stewards. Justin Benton now into the pit lane. And this is a curiosity. Have a look in here with the number 12. Because Destin Herget now has the lead. Benton's in the pit, and that looks like damage on the number 12. Is there something we're missing here? It certainly looks to be the case. Justin Benton is now in the pit lane and has lost not only first, but second as well, as Henry Freeman goes to second. And we now see that Benton has lost third as well, because Jamin van der Zwaag's now third place. Chase Hamilton looks to make that fourth. What happened for Justin Benton? Now, I just want to quickly glance back into the replay from before just to see, was he in the pit lane already? Yes, was the case, because the number 30 was leading at the time of that incident. And if we quickly drop away the live footage, we can see that the number 12, was he already in the pit lane at the time of the incident? You can see up in front, I believe so. Yes, that was the case. He was already in the pit lane, so very curious development going on here. Justin Benton now drops from what looks to be the top 5 as Radoslav Kowalczyk moves to the top 5. It has been disaster for Justin Benton for reasons we still do not fully understand. I'd be very curious to see if there's any footage available if you're willing to send some in, we'll have a look at it for the incident for Justin Benton. I mean, that is a big shock there for the number 12. We daren't go into the replay system, even though we're on a Series X, because it is just rife for crashing the game. And we've already had enough trouble today with crashes, both technical-wise and car-wise. Now leaving the pit lane then, Justin Benton, having dropped down to what looks to be 7th, as we see here from Traitor Phantom. They're further up the order. Morales along with them, so that could actually be as low as 8th place for Benton. Yes, we do see the confirmation there. Justin Benton from 1st to 8th. Well, the door has been kicked wide open here for Destin Herget. The number 30 with 26 minutes on the home straight here now has the con on the race lead. Could very likely bring home a victory for Ford. Henry Freeman still hungry for successes today. As far as it would happen to be the case between these two, they're about 4 corners apart, so it would take a very similar incident to what befell Justin Benton to bring Herget out of commission for a race win today. Just under 26 minutes left to go. There is no end to drama here at the Watkins Glen International Circuit. Jeremiah Lowy into the pit lane. That now forfeits position, up for 4th place there for Declan Russell. Meanwhile, at the head of GT4, still no news then from this one here. Danny Medina. We saw that huge tank slapper earlier from the fight going on between Mugetsu and Yohure. And it doesn't appear to have cost him any kind of steering damage, because otherwise that would have been him to the pit lane immediately. You can see, though, he is now coming in. I think Medina has now assessed the situation, seen that the damage is too much to bear, and is coming in. 25 minutes left to go. This is wonderful news for Clinton Bourne, because right now he rounds turn 5 at the outer loop. I would say now is as good a time as ever to come into the pit lane. 25 minutes left to go. Quick refuel on the car. Knowing the nearest car to challenge you is currently in the pit lane servicing damages, this is the best opportunity for Bourne to turn his prospects around. Of course, he started at the head of the GT4 field, quickly lost that out to Cal Ford, but now as the dust begins to settle here at Watkins Glen, he has commanded the lead, now has to play that one last mandatory pit stop before he's able to seal the deal here at a win in Watkins Glen. Curiosities do not end for this one here, Radoslav Kowalczyk. Number 991 has had his fair share of troubles today. Still yet to have come to the pits. I do wonder what the strategy is looking like here for the 991. Whether or not he'll be trying to run this down to the last available lap. It is not impossible. We have seen drivers do that before. It was at, in fact, I believe it was M. Wright over on the World Series on the Competizione Performance League who employed a very similar tactic here at Watkins Glen. Medina now on exit, but Bourne stays out. I mean, it is curious. What is the strategy coming forward here for Clinton Bourne? They're right in the eye of the storm here. They've got a lot of drivers backing up onto them. You can see that is the race leader with them there. Destin Herget up through the S's, following in a line of GT Fords. It's contact! Herget's in the wall! Herget is in the wall, turned around there by the leader of GT4. Oh my God. You never get to see stuff like this again here at Watkins Glen. What on earth has happened? In the wall, Destin Herget wiped out here at Watkins Glen. That is now the second leader of GT3 to be wiped out. We are told that he's getting back up and running, but that has kicked the door open. And now, as it stands to be the case, about to intercept a wounded Destin Herget is Henry Freeman. Ferrari lead in Watkins Glen amidst hellish drama for both leading Fords. I mean, I am at a complete loss for words, folks. Never before has a race taken so many twists and turns here at Watkins Glen. At this point, that leading position is cursed. Benton couldn't hold it. Herget got taken away from it. I fear what is going to happen here for Freeman. Some things are better left alone. And again, I should point out, Ferrari was never expected to be this competitive, but there is a distinct difference between qualifying data and race results. I can see the comments in chat there from Declan Anderson. I prefer not to speak. If I speak, I'm in big trouble, and I don't want to be in big trouble. Commentator's curse only exists when I say it does. 21 minutes left to go here in Watkins Glen. And I must say, it has been, by and large, one of the most dramatic races we've ever seen here on TRTN. And especially, I would say, one of the most dramatic races of 2026. And that really does go to say a lot, because we've had both Season 5 and 6 of the Sunday League. We've had quite a lot of action over from HCCL. We've had tons of action over from the Competizione Performance League. And yet this is one that stands out among them. A single 2-hour race at Watkins Glen without the pretenses of a championship to back it up. These drivers have gone through tooth and nail over the course of this event. And I am frankly stunned. And right now, it seems to be a case where the drivers are far more afraid of actually getting into any battles now, seeing that the majority of them have ended in disaster. I mean, let's just get a look back on that replay once again here. This was up through the S's just at the start of lap 53. Destin Hergert trying to navigate his way up through a pack of 4 GT4s, makes contact there with Clinton Bourne, rocketed to the wall, a huge hit with the Armcos. And that has been big, big trouble here. Now, again, reviewing that, the camera angle was a little far out, but you can see, I think the Chevrolet drifted over a little bit, but there wasn't a lot of room the Ford could have been going for. That's a tough one, and I don't claim to be a steward anymore, so that's not my role to decide who was at fault there. That one is in a very, very grey area, and I am not a big fan of grey. You see then with Jeremiah Lowy in the pit lane, I believe they're back into the paddock, if this is not already the tenure they had in the pit lane earlier. Clinton Bourne now leads the charge from Danny Medina. They've come in and taken their pit stop, so they played their strategy out. They've just under 20 minutes to play for here in Watkins Glen. Clinton Bourne could be looking on the chances of a GT4 win, but he will be definitely under the scalpel by the stewards. Whether or not that could come to cost him that victory if they dish out penalties to him. Now, I don't necessarily know. I think it's tough to call in that area of the track, but the GT4s have significantly less rotation ability. They have less aero, keeping them to the ground. They are going to run out wider, and you can always make the assertion with multi-class racing, it is the role of the faster car to get the safe overtaking opportunity in. I think you could definitely see from the line of cars that were forming up in through to the S's that there was a safe gap created. But you can see here, that is just the line. We're watching from Bourne. That is just the line. I don't think he was expecting the Mustang to be on him. I don't think he was expecting the Mustang to be on the inside at all. Now, I'm not playing devil's advocate, but it's just worth considering both sides of it there. Of course, with Destin Hergert, there is the hurried mentality. He doesn't want to stay in behind 4 GT4s. He's going to trim a lot of time away from his lap time here. He is trying to keep himself in the lead of this race. So there was definitely some urgency to clear a pack of that size, because that would have held him up for the entire lap. On the same side, though, I just don't think those GT4s were expecting him to go on the inside there, on what was going to quickly become the outside line up through turn 2, only to become the inside of turns 3 and 4. Knowing the GT4s run out wide there, and you just saw how the racing line normally looks for them, it does make you ask those questions. That's for the stewards to figure out there. All we have is the footage. The drivers themselves will be taking that one to the stewards by the end of this race. Taking a look in here, Faubert versus Mugetsu. Fight on 2 Mercedes cars here for 13th. This has been a real unique chapter opening up here for Freeman and Freeman Sim Racing Ferrari. As for Chase Hamilton, they're in the top 5 at the moment. It's worth noting, even with damages, they've played things out to a T. And there is a great chance here, if more trouble ensues in front, that Ferrari could be up on a double podium. Right now, though, it's Freeman with the charge of that race lead. 17.5 minutes to go. I'd say, feasibly speaking, looking at the course of about 8 more laps to our disposal today before the checkered flag. Freeman, I mean, this has been something else. Something else entirely. And I must drive that point home. We were not expecting Ferrari to be competitive, because all we had to analyze was track time data. And taking a look back through it, through free practice, then through qualifying, the Ferrari was certainly there, but it was playing third or fourth fiddle to Ford, Lexus, and BMW. They were always in the top 10, but they were never the ones on consideration to be in a top 3, for example. But these have been certainly trying circumstances here at the Watkins Glen International Circuit. Right now, as it stands then, the current toll of remaining operative drivers, 29 from what was 36, I believe, at the start of today's race. If you're hungry for more multi-class action, join us tomorrow at 2 p.m. BST, where we go live from Silverstone for coverage of the Silverstone Bring 'Em All. We see in the pit lane, though, Destin Herget is now in with more damage. Actually, could that be the same damage as before? That could be certainly one on the cards. We saw that from Medina not too long ago, where they came back into the pit lane following what would have originally just been a run in. They stayed out for a few more laps, maybe to assess whether or not the damage was capable for the rest of the race. And oh, that's not what you want, is it? He's dodged the pit box a little bit there. Destin Herget is in serious trouble, and that has kicked the door open for Chase Hamilton. Ferrari now hold a double podium. Ford's light on the podium has been extinguished with 15 minutes to go. I mean, this is absolutely bizarre. A regime change happening in real time on our screens at the moment. Lexus still hold the cards from the podium, though. Jamin van der Zwaag has done remarkably well to hold that podium off. They are not done yet here in Watkins Glen. Far from it, as a matter of fact. Henry Freeman leads the charge in the number 45 Ferrari. Herget is back out, but he's at the back of the top 5. Radoslav Kowalczyk now to 4th. See with Hamilton trying to get out and around here. I believe that's the 444, so that is Jeremiah Lowy. Hamilton up and around turn 7. Meanwhile, let's take a look down in towards the GT4s here to see a Chevrolet 1, 2, 3. Bourne, Medina, and Rogers on the top 3 spots. Then Declan Russell, then Dan Baxter around out the top 5 with Audi and BMW. Just outside of that top 5 at the moment is the KTM of Karina Stinson, then that of Bryce Ogilvie. And the number 97, Jeremiah Lowy, then Will Richards, then Rusnak, then Ford. You can see, though, both of them are still in the pit lane. I'd say that's their race effectively done here. You see, we get to the Faubert. Or Faubert, I should say. Oh, we were given the pronunciation guide there. I think I've just been slowly leaning in on the A and the U. It's Faubert, I'm told. Half a second between these two currently represents the closest fight on track at this time, with 13 minutes left to go today. And as we head up in towards the next lap coming here, we are looking to be the case here with oh, we'll be back to you in a moment's time. That looks to be a disconnect. Oh no, we're back. Okay, never mind, I'm just going nuts. That's awesome. Okay, well, if that does disconnect again, that's gonna look horrible, but still. I have no idea what happened. Oh, I don't know. I guess we are good. Luca in chat. Yeah, I guess we are. No idea. I see that. I just immediately start reaching for the technical difficulties button. Yeah, no idea. No idea. It wouldn't be an ACC race without stuff like this, would it? And you think it gets any better on Le Mans Ultimate, but no, what ends up happening is I end up just completely bricking the CPU. You see there, Faubert loses position out to Mugetsu off the 90, so up through the S's with Stinson up over their nose. You see there the KTM holding from the outside onto the back straight. In towards the inner loop chicane. Great move then by Migetsu, has held the card up through Sector 1, now into Sector 2. Feasibly speaking, we're on about 6 more laps here, including this one for Freeman at this time. And then there's been remarkable stuff here from the 296. So taking a look, we see his teammate. This is Chase Hamilton. Got to get up and around Alex Pratilis. Let's go to see on board with the fighting from the 2 Mercedes cars. That was a very curious footnote there in the last couple of laps, of course, with the overtake by Migetsu on Faubert. Let's go and catch on with these two. We'll leave you on with these two for a moment's time. We'll be back to you in a moment. We join right back in, right to the heart of action there, side by side off the exit of chute corner between these two at turn 6. Migetsu still holds the cards on 13th place, with Alex Faubert right behind. Taking a look at the roster at the moment, this still represents one of the closest fights on the field at this time. There are still a few stones left unturned here. Kowalczyk and Flores still yet to take their final pit stops. As suspected, it may very well be the case where they're trying to run things to the very last possible opportunity, is to try and not sacrifice as many positions on track. But of course, that's a gamble we see scarcely played. Some have succeeded with that, others have not. Through to turn 10, we see here from the 666. I mean, this has been tremendous dogfighting here between these two Mercedes cars. They've been brilliant so far. We see a little bit wide there by Faubert, as he took a bit of grass just on his left-hand side off the exit of turn... on the entrance, I should say, of turn 11. That did confound things for him there in that last corner. That's cost him some distance, now having doubled from 3 to 0.6 of a second. Meanwhile, we see here for Freeman, 8.5 minutes left to go. We see that is Tachkovsky chasing the number 9 of Jamin van der Zwaag. As it stands at the moment, Freeman from van der Zwaag, from Hamilton, from Kowalczyk, from Herget in the top 5. Benton with the fastest lap in 6th. Phantom in 7th. Morales in 8th. Carter van der Zwaag in 9th. And Pratilis rounds out the top 10. Johnson Ward in 11th. Yahure in 12th. Migetsu in 13th. Faubert in 14th. Miller in 15th, Tachkovsky in 16th, Lopez in 17th, and Kelsey in 18th. Then into the GT4 field, Bourne in 1st, Medina 2nd, Rogers 3rd, Russell 4th, Baxter 5th, Stinson 6th, McGilvey 7th, Lowy 8th, Richards 9th. And then currently 2 active DNFs here for Rusnak and Ford. They're both still in the pit lane among several others. So 27 cars remaining on a grid that started some nearly 36 strong. You see the possibility here of counter-attack by Faubert. He got the run up through turn 8, but he's to the outside at turn 9, so he doesn't try to commit from the outside line there. That would have cost him too much momentum. See, tries to carry more speed from turn 10 into towards turn 11. These two caught in somewhat of a long-standing ballet here. There's an ebb and flow to everything between the fight between these two Mercedes cars. Looking for the inside now goes Alex Faubert. Backs out of it though. Traitor Migetsu keeps the lead. falling in behind, though. It was a risky move indeed, but one that's cost him a lot more distance than he could afford to lose at this time. Another fight going on during this time. Battle on the V6s. Honda versus Ferrari. Fabian Yahure versus Jaden Johnson-Ward. And just a moment here, as I believe there was a change up front of the field. Not 100% sure. Seem to see something there up the order. Might just be my eyes playing tricks on me at this rate. 6 minutes, 20 seconds left to go. Two fights going on at the same time here for 11th and 13th. Mugetsu and Phobia for 13th. Johnson, Ward and Yahure for 11th. From the leading perspective, we have just a little under 3 more laps to play for on the court here of Henry Freeman. We just nearly see there's some trouble with the Audi of Declan Russell. We spoke as well. It was more in the conversation previously with some of the Polish drivers. I believe it was Jaschuk and Tachkovsky we were speaking of at the time. But it's worth noting as well for drivers like Freeman who are competing on the same time zone as us. You know, he is registered at least here as a British driver. If he's competing the same time we're recording, these are the the bright and early hours of the morning, from 5 o'clock in the morning when we started today's session to where we stand right now, some 5 minutes from its end at 7:30 in the morning. So he's really got up quite early at the crack of dawn for this one, but Freeman has delivered thus far on quite an exemplary performance. He's threaded quite a few eyes of quite a few needles and braved quite a few eyes of quite a few storms to hold the position he has at the moment. He's kept a very, very tight grip on things over the course of this race. Number 57, we've just noted, is now in. And that, I believe, yes, is Faubert. No, he's not in the pit lane. He's on the pit lane. Has he hit the wall there on pit road? You can see the amount of damage. He's come out from turn 11 and slammed the wall. He's on the marbling there. I think he's just holding short to allow Pratilis on past. We see for the 57. I think he's now starting to gauge, is the car inoperable? No, he's letting her get on past at 57. This is definitely going to be into the pit lane on this lap if we had to take a wild guess, but he's got to get all the way around the track to do so. Kowalczyk now in with 4 minutes left to go. Playing this one to the last available stops for him. Meanwhile, number 17 in trouble. That would be for Dan Baxter off the exit of turn 7. He spun around. In fact, he's in the wall. As we see him emerge there, getting up past him was Carter van der Tvag. But that could cost him position because Karina Stinson's only about 2 or 3 corners away. If there is damage sizable enough to render him to the pit lane, that could be a top 5 for the KTM. You can see the state of the damage there on the back. That wing's out of alignment. The rear bumper's damaged. Front bumper's damaged as well, albeit slightly less so. That's going to be really a case on if the steering system's damaged. You can see he is going a lot slower than expected through those corners. Whether or not he's just getting his bearings again, or if there is sizable damage to the steering and suspension. We'll see, though, on whether or not he brings it to the pit lane. This could be payday for KTM. Number 17 elects to stay out. We see there, trying to get on past. Oh, my word, a bit of contact there. Matthew Kelsey. I think there's more going on under the bonnet, so to speak, with that BMW than with being let on, because that didn't seem like a car that's in control. I think he's just trying not to come into the pit lane. He wants to keep a top 5 and is willing to try and fight a broken steering system for the next 2 laps in the hopes to hold on to a lead. It is quite a risk here we're seeing, and I think we are on the cusp of about to see the last lap of racing from Henry Freeman as he makes his way up through turn 9, 10 and 11. Roughly about 2 minutes a lap. It really will teeter on what these next few corners look like for him. Looking at those timetables over the course of this event. Laps, yeah, in the ballpark, actually over 147. So, as far as it stands right now, we are looking at the penultimate lap coming up for us here, unless declared otherwise by the game. So it's more for the GT4s, actually, that they're getting lap times in the ballpark here of a 2 minute within that bracket. The 150s for the GT3s at this time. Going to catch on board with the Ferrari. Right now, battling starting to dissipate here at Watkins Glen. And Henry Freeman stands at the lead here in an immaculate condition, 45. I am very, very surprised that he has come away with such little damages, if anything, over the course of this race. It is very rare to see on a race, especially this chaotic, that a driver has come through without a mark on his car. You see there, that's the damage 57 of Alex Faubert. I believe he's probably, yes, you can see signaling there the right, so he's saying to Freeman, look, I'm going to hold the right-hand side, you going up and around on my left. We do head on in towards that final lap a moment from now. Taking a look, though, there is still the fight between Jaden Johnson-Ward and Fabian Yahure. V6 versus V6 then. 3.5 litre Honda V6 engine versus the latest Ferrari V6 technology. The same underpinnings in that 296 and the same V6 used by the 499P that on its debut went on to take a win at the 24 Hours of Le Mans and then would do so for 2 more years thereafter, 3 on the trot, only having recently been interrupted this year at the 2026 24 Hours of Le Mans by the Toyota TR010. You see there, diving to the pit lane was Jaden Johnson-Ward, the Honda. Now in, a stop-go 30 has been issued to Faubert. And that is really quite a shocker here. His prospects couldn't be getting any worse at this time. It has been a calamity end to what has been so far a solid race for Faubert. It has really gone sour in the last 10 minutes or so for him. So that's horrible news from the Mercedes. I am very curious, though, to note what is the Honda doing back in the pit lane. Is it a fuel concern? We see piling down through turn 1. We see is the lead of GT4. Clinton Bourne side by side there with Mike Morales. Behind him is Bryce Ogilvie in the KTM. Right now, all that Bourne has to do is just keep his head low and out of trouble, and he could be looking to collect on a win today. He's had to brave through the storm for this one, and there were so many twists and turns in GT4, as much as there has also been here for GT3. So going to catch back on board with Henry Freeman on what I can only describe as the mother of all comebacks here. No one expected coming into today's event for Ferrari to be competitive when we got green and racing, but it has been one hell of a performance by the Freeman Sim Racing team and by the number 45 of Henry Freeman as he barrels down through turn 11. The checkered flag is out and awaiting the arrival of Henry Freeman to the line, and down towards the line we go. Henry Freeman wins the 2 hours at the Glen.
The leader has finished the race.
Ferrari pulling off the impossible on Ford's home territory. This is unheard of. Your GT3 winner then for today, Henry Freeman, in historic fashion for Ferrari. And heading down towards the line then, we catch on to see here with Clinton Bourne as we still have another division win to rank here, and down through to turn 10 in towards turn 11. Chevrolet are looking to pull off a 1-2-3 where it may have been trouble for their contemporaries at Ford up in GT3. GT4 is won by the home crowd. Down towards the line, Milk Crate Racing's Clinton Bourne wins for Chevrolet in the GT4s at the 2 hours at the Glen. What a turnaround it has been today then for the Aussie talent in the number 6, bringing joy and jubilation to Chevrolet as part of that 1-2-3. Danny Medina looks to take on second. We already get confirmation of third there by Evan Rogers. 4th place for Declan Russell, as it stands to be the case here for Baxter, looking at a secured 5th, as 6th and 7th already having gone to KTM's Karina Stinson and Bryce Ogilvie. Your winner, though, at the end of this race, the 2 hours at the Glen by VPR, brought to you by TRTN, is Henry Freeman in GT3 and Clinton Bourne in GT4. I mean, that is something else from Ferrari. And a Ferrari 1-3, I should point out as well, as we do get confirmation of 4th for Destin Herget. And down to the line, Justin Benton will see the top 5 with the fastest lap. at the end of this race. I would say one that definitely flew under the radar. We saw the 666 has actually been disqualified for driving in the wrong direction for Trota Mugetsu. So we'll wait to see what the actual result of that's looking like, because I think he might have just thrown away a possible position here. And we'll wait to see it. We will wait to see it at the end of this session. But a Ferrari 1-3. And I'd say Jamin van der Zwaag definitely flew under the radar, turning his prospect around into a podium here for Lexus, the only remaining of the old guard up at the head of that field to keep his position on the track. Very solid stuff there. You can see the final result coming in now. Freeman wins in GT3, Bourne in GT4. Brilliant stuff all around there from Freeman Sim Racing and Milk Crate Racing to take your 2 wins at the 2 hours at the Glen. Looking at the full result then, Freeman first with Van der Zwaag in second, Hamilton third, Herget fourth, Benton fifth, Phantom in sixth, Kowalczyk in seventh, Morales in eighth, Van der Zwaag, that being Carter Van der Zwaag in ninth, and Pratilis rounds out the top 10. Yahure in 11th, Miller in 12th, Johnson Ward 13th, Tachkovsky 14th, Faubert in 15th, Lopez in 16th, and Kelsey in 17th. Taking a look there at the GT4 crowd reveals Bourne wins with a Chevrolet 1-2-3 with Medina second, Rogers third, Russell fourth, and Baxter in fifth, Stinson sixth, Ogilvy seventh, Lowy in eighth, and Richards in ninth. And you can see this huge wad there of DNFs. It was a very, very brutal race. We lost Flores, Rusnak, Ford, Bailey, Yaschuk, Larson, Cricken, Hicks, and Herzog. That has been a very, very brutal outing here on our first ever race with the folks at VPR and their special event here, the 2 hours at the Glen. Won by Ferrari in GT3, won by Chevrolet in GT4. What a race that's been then, folks. Very, very well done then to Henry Freeman, Jamin van der Zwaag, and Chase Hamilton in the GT3 podium. Very well done then to Clinton Bourne, Danny Medina, and Evan Rogers on the GT4 podium. What a race that's come to be today. And we're not quite finished just yet for special events this weekend. Join us tomorrow, 2 p.m. BST, for another special event, the HCCL Silverstone Bring 'em All, hosted by FAFC and live on TRTN tomorrow, 2 p.m. BST from Silverstone, home at the British Grand Prix. And that'll be going on at the same time as a real-world event at Silverstone, as this weekend also sees the arrival of the British Grand Prix in MotoGP. Also this weekend, if you're a fan of any other British motorsports, will be at Knock Hill for the British Touring Car Championships. We'll be hopefully keeping a track on reports for that. And we'll be live on our next performance after tomorrow. Will be on Monday as we return after the summer break to Fats GT Season 11. That's all from us here on TRTN. Very well done to our 2 winners today. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care and goodbye.